Hey, everybody. I'm Jesse.
And this is Jake.
I'm Doug.
I'm Brandon.
I'm Adam, and I'm old as fuck, yo. I mean, I'm the oldest one of the guys here. I think. I'm pretty sure.
That is not true. This is boring conversation.
Welcome to Boring Conversation, a Malifaux podcast.
All right. And welcome back to Boring Conversation, everybody. So, in today's episode, we've actually partnered up with the folks over at Danger Planet, the new YouTube channel that's been putting out a bunch of Malifaux content. Because a bunch of us went to a local tournament, just last weekend. We thought we'd get Doug and Brandon from the channel on to talk about their games and, do a good old-fashioned tournament recap. So, hi, Doug and Brandon.
Hi, Jesse.
Yeah. Hey, Jesse. Thanks for having us on, man. We're really excited to do this review with you guys. For folks that don't know, we have an ongoing faction focus series that has had a really positive response, and it actually features Jesse and Sam Barrows from our channel, who is also the Goonhammer representative for Malifaux. And they have half of the series already out right now. And we're actually, as of time of filming, Sunday, going to be filming the other half. So you guys should check that out. It's really, really cool. It gives a really good overview of just like the lore of the game, very high level keyword overviews, and people have really liked it. And Jesse's too humble to dig it for himself, so I'll do it for him. He's done an excellent job, and you guys should really check it out. So.
Point of order: are we recording tomorrow or Sunday? Because I put it in my calendar for tomorrow, but either day.
I think it's Sunday, right?
Yeah. I'm very organized, as you guys can see.
Yeah. I think it's Sunday, if that's still reasonable.
We'll follow up on that. I should probably make sure I don't drive to your house on the wrong day.
I mean, I have all the stuff set up, but yeah, you'd be missing Barrows, because I think he's actually moving tomorrow.
Oh, okay. So, good likelihood that it's actually on Sunday, which is a good thing that we had this talk.
Yeah.
Also, can I just say, as far as projects in the pipeline that we have going on, I just have two words that I'd like to share with all of the viewers. Cake.
Yeah,
that's true.
Cake.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about the cake
That's
project?
one word.
No. No. See, that's what most people think, but cake.
Fair enough.
You have to say it really kind of slow and sexy to make it two words.
It's really hard. See, that's the thing. It's really hard to say a one-syllable word sexily.
Yeah.
Sexily? Is that a word?
Do you mean provocatively?
Very good.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Thesaurus.
Yeah.
You gotta say it like wicked sexy like and stuff.
Like wicked sexy, bro. Yo, dude, that was wicked sexy, dude.
So it's great, listeners, because I'm going to leave all that shit in. The very first thing that I talked about when I had these guys on was that we had to limit the amount of crosstalk, and I can see how this is going. So I hope you guys are ready for a good solid hour and a half to 2 hours worth of
We started
crosstalk.
talking about Brendan's sexy cake.
Oh, it's the sexiest of cakes. Thank you.
Yes, indeed. All right.
I can't wait to get some in your mouths.
So all the folks on the recording right now, save Jacob, were able to go to the event. So Jake is going to bite the bullet, and he's going to ask us about the event, kind of interview us on what our picks were, what the rounds were like, what our opponents were. And rather than doing a full play-by-play of every episode, a full play-by-play of every game, we're going to go over more like the highlights, and we're going to focus more on the hiring decisions that we made, why we made them, and whether or not we feel like those panned out, plus how we feel like our opponents did in the hiring phase. Because I think for me, anyway, that's really what I get the most out of when I listen to tournament recaps, is listening to a scheme and strat pool and opposing master, and then what led the players to the hiring decisions that they made. I feel like that's how we can all kind of grow in the game and how we can improve our play. So that's what we're going to focus on today. But before we get into that, I need to ask y'all, what are you drinking tonight? So I'll start out. I'm actually drinking a homebrew beer that I think I've probably had on the podcast before. It's a German-style Bock beer brewed with a little bit of rye and then some green and black peppercorns. I can't believe that I still have any left in the keg. This keg should have kicked like probably 2 months ago, but I've been bleeding it because I like the beer so much. So been kind of taking it easy, and apparently there's still some left. So that's what I got tonight. Jacob, how about you? What you got?
I am drinking a sour from Kettlehead Brewing, which is in New Hampshire. It's in Tilton, New Hampshire, and I actually went there over the weekend, and it is called House Margarita, and it is actually the best sour I've ever had.
That's pretty cool. So I don't know if you know this, Jake, because I don't think you've ever had the chance to try it, but that's actually one of my house style beers is a Margarita Goza, which is like a salted, sour, low gravity beer.
Yeah.
And I brew it with some oak cubes, like a barrel from a barrel that I'll age in tequila with some lime. And then I'll throw them into the beer before it's ready for service. So that's something that's actually on the docket for this year.
Yeah, I don't know a ton about beer, but I was with some people who do, including my friend Josh, whose parents own Buzzards Bay Brewery, and he was kind of impressed by this place as well. You know, he was saying that not only are the beers good, but they serve them properly. Like certain beers were like at room temperature, and
Nice.
So yeah, it was a cool place.
Pretty dope. And Josh has good taste in beer, so I'm sure he's right in that regard. Adam, what you got, sir?
Jesse, you won't believe it.
Do you have water?
I'm on call tonight.
You're on call.
Isn't that shocking? It's crazy because I'm always fucking on call.
Seems that way.
So what I'm drinking tonight is I'm drinking myself a mango bubbly.
Oh.
Yeah, I love this shit. I don't drink soda anymore, man. Like soda is one bad for you, and two, it tastes like shit. So I've been drinking these bubblies because when I do get a chance to drink booze, they're pretty awesome for mixers. So
Yeah, for sure.
yeah, I can get all kinds of crazy shit. But
It's
yeah, that's what
nice
I'm doing.
because my kids love bubbly water too, and the one that I just got was like a ginger mule from Polar,
Mhm.
which is most assuredly not a kid's flavor, but they both love it, and it's great for gin mixers.
Dude,
too.
those polar ones are just ridiculous. Like, there's crazy flavors they come out with.
Yeah, they're crazy
There's
good.
some good stuff. Yeah.
So anybody outside of New England, sorry if you can't get Polar, but it's good stuff. Yeah. So Doug, what do you have, sir?
Adam, I actually, it seems like we have similar ideas because what I'm doing is I'm doing Spindrift with Red Bull with vodka. So I'm basically like taking, flavored bubbly water and putting booze
Great.
in it.
Yeah.
So you get an upper and a downer
Yeah.
in the same drink.
It seems it's the healthiest thing to do,
Yeah, for sure.
Balance. All about balance.
Yeah,
It's
life
all
is
about
all
the
about
balance.
balance as my heart attack, rapidly approaches.
What about you, Brandon? What you got tonight?
So I have a Brewworks Artisinal Extreme Sour, which
it
is
extremely sour.
it's so sour, and there's a big reveal coming. But it's so it's brewed in Saratoga Springs and sometimes in Everett, Mass. So it's sort of a local beer, but it's brewed under license with a confectionery company that you may have heard before, Warheads.
Dude, I've had that before.
What?
I've had it. I've had it before.
I have 3 of them in front of me because I'm not going to drink blue raspberry because I'm not a child. But I have a black cherry and an orange pineapple that are in queue, and right now I'm drinking their watermelon Warhead Sour Ale. And I gotta say, I thought it was a gimmick, but it actually is. It's very good. It's a good beer. It has the Brandon stamp of approval.
Yeah, I actually had the blue raspberry one because I am a child.
Yeah, checks out.
And it was surprisingly good. I thought it was just going to be gimmicky and just it was really good.
They have depth. I mean, they're sort of sour. They're not really that warheady, but no, they have some good flavors. And they change them out too. They've had a couple different ones that they rotated in. So, neat gimmick, but they actually did it and pulled it off well.
Awesome. So that's what we're all drinking. So we already talked a little bit about what the episode's about, but just to give a quick plug to our venue, The tournament was held by Off the Wall Games in Hadley, Massachusetts. Steve Bohr, the local hench person from that neck of the woods, was kind enough to run the event. It was a singles format, meaning that no second masters were allowed. I believe we had 10 total players. Adam ended up coming in first. I came in second. Doug came in third. And I'm not sure what place Brandon ended up in, but I'm sure he was probably pretty close behind because he and I played round 3. So
I think overall, for the most part, there was pretty good parity across the board. I mean, there wasn't a lot of crazy blowouts or anything like that, and there was some ties. So
yeah,
the field was pretty even for the most part, I would say.
yeah. Steve told me that most of the games were very, very tight. He really didn't see any, like to Adam's point, big blowouts, and we did have I think we had a draw round 2 that kind of made things get a little goofy. But yeah, and with that, I'll hand it over to Jake, and we'll get her going.
Okay, so round 1 was flank deployment, break the line. I do love that on the diagonal. With spread them out, claim jump, bait and switch, assassinate, and let them bleed. So why don't we start with Jesse and Doug, since you guys played each other?
Yeah, for sure.
Cool.
So Doug and I have played each other, I think, one other time at another local. Or no, we played it together. We played each other at Captain Con, right? Is that what it?
Yeah, we played in the team round of the creators content thing when I was teammates with Sam.
Yeah, this is the second time that Doug and I got a chance to play. And actually, I even forgot to mention before we got started. Let's just go over the factions that we all played today. So, or in this tournament, I went with 10 Thunders this time around. Doug, you were Explorers?
Explorer Society.
Correct?
Yeah,
Yep.
I was Explorer Society.
And then Brandon was Neverborn.
No, I was Rezzers.
No, you were not. That's a lie.
One
And
day.
Adam-
I do own Rezzers, but no, I was never born, as always.
And then Adam, you were Neverborn as well,
I
right?
was also Neverborn, yes.
All right, cool. So
Did anyone go into this tournament saying, I'm only going to play a specific master?
I did,
Okay,
and then did.
good for you.
I went into it saying I wanted to play a master at some point in the tournament,
Okay.
and I did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know Jesse did the same thing because we talked about it a little bit before he went.
yeah, I went in. Initially, my plan was that I was going to play Mayfang 2, just because I really got a chance to take a kind of a deep dive on her card, and knowing that she shares a lot of stuff with Trixie. So there's quite a few buying models that I already had. I was very interested in trying her out. And I did play her, but not this round. Other than that, I decided that this tournament I was going to focus on playing masters that I had not played ever or hadn't played in probably a year and a half or more. And that's what I did this round.
Cool. So, Doug, usually we would ask, why did you pick this master for this particular pool? But why don't you just tell us, why did you decide you wanted to play Maxine 2 all day?
So I very recently have looked into picking up ES as my second really serious faction. I actually started the game competitively on Rezzers. And actually, you were a huge help for me when I was first starting out. I remember I came to you and I was asking you all about, where do I play this master? How do I do this? Because Rezzers has so much depth to it, and so much play and so many tools. But the weird situation that I found myself in was that I picked up Explorer Society post errata, and effectively post nerf for a lot of their shiniest toys. And so I had to look really closely at the faction and say, where are their strengths now? Like, what can I do to be competitive as an ES player in this kind of new world for ES, right? Like, if you look at the lists in Captain Con, ES had kind of been solved. Like, there were a heck of a lot of people playing lists that looked really similar to one another, and then post ban or post nerf cycle, a lot of those lists like kind of fell at the bottom. So I've been looking for the next competitive thing, and I really think that the two of the best things you can be doing as an Explorer Society player right now are playing Cadmus 2 or playing Maxine 2. And I think Cadmus 2 really shines the most when you can kind of mix in second masters. So in a double master format where I can put 4 models with 3 AP on the table, it might be a bad day at the office for my opponent, but this was a singles format, so I had done a lot of theory crafting on this, and I wanted to test it. And I was like, I think Max 2 is the most powerful thing I can do right now. And I think if I just play her, there are almost no pools that I can't at least fight to get a solid chance for them. And some of them, they're just slam dunks. So that's why I took her.
Cool. Yeah, you have always struck me as the kind of player who doesn't want to just take the thing that everyone knows is really good, but wants to kind of find the new thing, right? So I think going into them post nerf was the right call for you because it allows you to kind of rediscover and define what is going to be good going forward.
Yeah, it's cool because when I try new things and I'm doing all this stuff, people don't just sigh and they're not just like, oh, it's not like, like a all versatile out of keyword old school Explorer Society list. Like we get it, like the old ones. So people actually, a lot of people that I play at my LGS, they haven't played Cadmus 2 before, or they might not have played Max 2 before. And so for them, that's also a learning experience. And it's been a learning experience for me. It's been a lot of fun. So I'm really enjoying it. So
cool. Jesse, you went with Asami?
Yeah, I ended up with Asami, and then after we did pairings and he declared Maxine, I'm like, well, he's almost certainly going to play Maxine too, just because I know she's very good and she's kind of like the new hotness. I do feel like she definitely has a significant edge over Max 1, and I knew that Max 2 was going to be a little bit of a struggle for my crew, so I didn't want to try taking Asami too, because her crew is just very, very fragile and she doesn't have any recursion. So I felt like that was going to be a pretty rough match if I took that. So I stuck with Asami 1. Reason being I went with her was she's with the pool the way that it was. Her crew is pretty fast, and it has a lot of AP efficiency. So break the line is usually a pretty safe bet for her, especially on flank, because her crew is so quick. You can usually get out to the sides if the markers end up getting put that far out. And then with the scheme pool, her crew is really good at spread them out for the same reasons that it's really good at break the line. They have a lot of flying models. They have a couple of models that are essentially 3 AP, because they've got a double walk and then a bonus to interact, or a couple of other things that are sort of similar to that. So spread them out is pretty easy for the crew. The only downside is that the models are very fragile. So if your opponent goes hard on them, then your plan can kind of fall apart. I knew that the game was going to end up kind of being in a center scrum, so I wasn't confident with claim jump, and I don't really have great claim jump models. But Asami is pretty good at denying assassinate, because she does have protected and she can summon models to help keep her safe. She also has some pretty decent healing potential on her card, so I feel like she's a pretty good master in Thunders to help deny assassinate. Maybe not the best, but she's certainly good at it. And then yeah, go ahead.
Asami kind of allows you to break the rule as far as summoning and interact. Did you take complete advantage of that with the Tengu, summoning them and then interacting? Yeah, it's filthy.
Yeah, definitely. So what I ended up doing, my game plan was, I ended up taking Assassinate, which is a little bit of a risk against Max 2, because she does have the Demise trigger, or the Demise ability on her card. I felt like I had the tools to kind of deal with that, so I took a little bit of a risk just because I knew she was going to be center, because that's just kind of how she works, and I can summon models into her. And then I took Spread Them Out just because the crew's so good at it with the Tengu and their bonus action to do the interact, and then being able to summon models that, while I can't interact with the scheme or with the strategy markers, I can use Tengu and Amanozako to make them interact to drop scheme markers for spread, which is exactly what I did.
Did you take the Charm Warder out of keyword to fuck over Maxine? Because she comes back, right, on the center line.
Actually, we should probably go over our crews. We didn't do that. So I took Asami 1 with a 6-stone cache. Amanjaku, of course. Amanozako, her big Oni henchman. Lady Yume, one of the new models from Malifaux Burns. The Charm Warder out of keyword. A Yokai, a Tengu, an Akaname. And I actually went with the Kamatachi, which was probably a mistake on my part, but there's not really that much else I could hire for 4 stones. It was either that or take an upgrade on something and bank the other 2 stones. My plan with the Kamatachi was that the combo of Lady Yume with the Kamatachi and Asami 1 means that I'm going to have some card cycling because of the summons on Asami. The Kamatachi can get Flicker from Lady Yume instead of having to do some stupid stuff like attack one of my models and use Flicker and damage my own guys, which are already kind of fragile. And my plan was that I was going to jam Amanozako close to the middle near his kind of ball, and then use the Kamatachi to make some Dust Devils and put those in for multiple sources of hazardous damage. So that was sort of my idea with those. Doug, why don't you go over what you took for your crew?
Yeah, sure. To be honest with you, a lot of Max 2 lists shake out very similarly, and you kind of end up with 1 or 2 swing slots depending on the pool, just because of how she functions. But yeah, let me pull it up really fast. For round 1, I had Max 2, Orville, Machinist, Calypso, Bebe, Tidecaller, Hirata, the Damned out of keyword, and the Intrepid Effigy with an Effigy of Fate upgrade.
Cool.
Yeah. Do you want me to walk through the secondaries I took?
Yeah, go ahead. Why don't you say what you took?
Yeah, so I took Claim Jump. In Max 2, you basically always want to take Claim Jump because she's very, very good at doing it. She generally wants to pick a fight in the middle of the board, and Tidecaller is a really good piece to be able to just walk up to people and throw them away from the middle. So most of the time you take that. And I took Let Them Bleed because I did not want to take Assassinate for the exact reason that Jesse just talked about. Basically, because she has Protected. So I took one look at that card. I said, oh, she's got Protected, so not going to go after Assassinate. The plan bringing Max 2 into the pool was just to go with Claim Jump and either Let Them Bleed or Assassinate, whichever was a better presentation of a target. And I just was not going to score Assassinate on Jesse, so I didn't take it.
Cool. Yeah, and then in terms of my crew, to your point, Jake, I did take the Charm Warder primarily just as a foil to Max 2. Because it kind of creates an area that's very dangerous for her to be in. If you can deny her demise, then she's actually pretty vulnerable.
Yeah. To counter that, though, he actually has the Machinist.
Yeah, the Machinist has the counter aura,
which would shut that off. So yeah, Machinist is like for if you've never played Maxine and you go up against Maxine, be very aware of where the Machinist is.
Yeah, for real. And then I hired the Yokai and the Tengu, which a lot of times in previous versions of Asami before GG2 came out, you'd probably hire a Tengu, but you wouldn't necessarily hire a Yokai. You'd probably summon them. But now, because you need to hire them to interact with the strategy markers, I took those basically as my strat runners. And then everything else in the crew is fairly standard. Lady Yume is not a super common hire, but I do think that she's pretty damn good with Asami 1.
Cool.
And then Kamatachi is probably the most questionable hire on my part.
Any highlights?
Yeah, for sure. So Doug managed to get some lucky swings and kill Yume turn 1.
Yeah, Yume died turn 1.
And then also killed my Akaname turn 1, which is not, that happens. Like, that's not that surprising. So I wasn't feeling too good about things at that point. I would say other than that, I ended up catching Maxine at just too far away from the Machinist for its counter aura to work, and I managed to commit enough resources to keep my Charm Warder alive at 1 wound, and then I was able to actually run in with Asami late turn 2, and I swung 2 attacks on Maxine, and I hit a severe for 6 and then a moderate for 4 when Doug had basically no stones left, and I managed to kill her. Just being a hair inside that Charm Warder aura. So yeah, good old the sneaky Asami 1 melee attack for the win with a 2-4-6 damage track and execute.
So how'd the game end up?
We actually didn't finish the game, embarrassingly enough. So it came out with a fairly low score. I believe it was 3-2. Is that correct, Doug?
Yeah, you won 3-2.
Yep.
Yeah, because
I ended up getting
I got let them bleed in a primary, and you got primary
spread
spread
them out and
and one on
assassinate.
assassinate.
Yeah, exactly.
What turn did you guys get to?
We get to turn 3.
Ooh.
Yep. That was a game where there was a lot of like, we were both playing a little slower than we really should have.
Mhm.
I hadn't played the Sami in quite some time, so there were definitely some points that I had to spend a little extra time thinking about my moves. And Maxine 2 is just a fairly complex list, so Doug certainly took a little bit of extra time. We both knew that it was going to be that kind of game going into it, so we didn't really give each other a hard time. Would have
Yeah.
been great if we'd have been able to finish turn 3. I don't know if things would have shaken out much differently because we had both taken some pretty heavy losses by that point. Doug had lost his master, he'd lost Orville, but the rest of his crew was pretty healthy. I mean, he really didn't have any damage to speak of on the rest of it.
I think it was a good representation of what turn 3 would. I mean, like we looked at the board and we were like, well, there's like 2 or 3 more activations per side, but like this is kind of what I was going to do, and I don't think it ended up affecting the scoring either way.
Yeah,
I think the score at the end of turn 3 was 3-2 in your favor.
Yes, that's correct.
So.
Cool. Yeah, Asami 1 is problematic with finishing games because the way her summon mechanic works. Like has so many activations every turn, and it can take a while. She's a frustrating master for sure in that respect.
Yeah, it was great because one thing that was a little frustrating about that was in the entire game, even with the card cycling from the Kamitachi and Lady Yume on turn 1 before she died, I never once drew into a 13, so I could never summon a Jorogumo with Mark of Vengeance to turn off Maxine's heal. My highest card I drew the entire game was a 12, so I was like, well, guess I'm going with an Obsidian Oni. That's all I'm gonna get.
All right, should we move on to Adam?
Do it up.
So yeah, my first round I ended up playing Zoraida 1 into that, mostly because when I see Break the Line, I think, okay, an Obey Master is going to be baller at this. So that's what I did. I went with Zoraida. My crew was Zoraida, Bad Juju, Hinamatsu, 2 Silurids, Vasilisa, and a Doppelganger. It was actually pretty interesting because for the past few tournaments I've just been hammering Double Master because I want to make it a problem, and being able to break out some different models and doing this single master thing was kind of fun. So ultimately, scheme wise, I ended up going with Claim Jump and Spread Them Out. Spread them out because I had Silurids and a Doppelganger and Zoraida, and Claim Jump because I had Juju, who's very hard to kill, and Zoraida. So I thought it was a pretty good pool for her overall.
What were you up against?
I played into a Lucius 2 crew.
Okay, so you have some experience there. You just played me with Lucius 2.
I did just play against
so
Lucius
you probably
2.
knew what to expect.
I did. It was a slightly different crew, and by slightly I mean a lot different. But I don't think it was a bad crew. I thought maybe more changelings would help because I think changelings are pretty overlooked right now, considering they just changed, but they're pretty amazing. He took Lucius 2, the Scribe, a False Witness, Guild Lawyer, Alan Reed, Doppelganger, Changeling, Kavatica, and Klaus Norwood. The long and short with this game is essentially I was able to really alpha strike and jam him on his side of the table with Hinamatsu, who then went on to kill absolutely everything.
Yeah, I was going to say Hinamatsu decimates that crew if she gets in there.
Yeah, and then fast Hinamatsu does really well, and Hinamatsu doing 2 actions on an obey does really well. So yeah, it was pretty rough. Once I got Hinamatsu in, and he got to the point where he was chasing. He went heavy on one flank, and kind of light on the other one. So he sent pretty much everything with the exception of Lucius and a changeling to to the right side. He was essentially chasing after a Silurid who was going to go drop markers and kick the cans around. Um, and he went really hard on that side and ended up getting bubbled up. And once I got my stuff in there, it was just all bad. Like I was able to get Hinamatsu up into like engaging like 4 models. And then like she was just blending everything. And then because of Vasilisa, everything that started there ended up getting staggered. And then Vasilisa started banging on stuff because once they're staggered, she's a maze balls at beating things up. So yeah, it just really went south after that point. Like I forget what it was I killed right away. I think I killed Alan Reed like I want to say end of turn 1, maybe beginning of turn 2. And then she just blended into everything else, and nobody could really get away. So that's where that one went downhill.
Cool. What was the final score?
I believe it was 7-2.
Okay.
7-2.
I love the idea of Hanamatsu and a Zoraida crew. It's just disgusting.
It's so good. It's so good. And then like with Vasilisa giving her that +1 movement, and just it's pretty good. I like it a lot.
Yeah.
She's dirty. She's really
nice.
She's a really good burnout target too.
Yeah.
Getting fast
Well,
on
that's the thing. You
her
hit
for a
her,
cost of 1.
That's what I do. Well, you hit her with fast, and then Vasilisa just heals her.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't hurt. And then obviously Vasilisa. I don't even think I summoned anything that game with Vasilisa.
So you essentially had 2 masters because Hanamatsu was pulling extra duty.
Oh my god. It's just crazy how much she can put out, especially if she goes fast. Like if you think about it with fast, that gets her to the 3 AP, that master level. And then she's just banging on you. If you got the suits,
she's taking like 6 or 8 attacks.
She's doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. She can do 8 attacks in a turn. It's bonkers because she has
pretty nasty.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right, moving on. Brandon.
Yeah.
How was your first game?
It was good. So I played against John, who was one of the local guys, as far as I understand it. He declared outcasts. And I ended up playing Pandora 2 in this pool. Basically, I looked at the pool, sort of thinking what I wanted to do. I think that I was waffling between maybe playing Pandora 2 or maybe playing Zoraida. I had brought Zoraida, but I don't have as many reps. And I've been playing a lot of Pandora 2 lately. And really, I sort of saw most of the tables, and there wasn't a lot of severe terrain. There was a lot of blocking things. There were a lot of large blocking things. And I really just thought that I sort of wanted to have access to a good amount of incorporeal models. But because it's Break the Line, having Dreamer be there being super summony wasn't super viable. So we landed on Pandora, and then my opponent declared Outcast, and I wasn't really sure what to think because it's Outcasts. And he ended up playing Zip, which was neat. I played against. I have a good amount of Zip practice, so I sort of knew what I was in for. But I ended up playing Pandora and Poltergeist. Obviously, there was Claim Jump in this pool, so of course I was running Candy. I ran Carver, Dorian Crow, who I love in Pandora 2, and then also a Sorrow, a Wicked Doll, and the Hooded Rider.
Interesting. You didn't have an aversion? Or I guess you can summon it, right?
I could theoretically summon them, but nope, I did not have an aversion.
For Claim Jump, I mean?
No. Yeah, so I find that the Hurt Locker, that a combination of Candy being basically walked into position in the center hole is strong enough to discourage anybody from trying to Claim Jump me. The Candy has 2 auras that are really, really gross. Obviously, we have the Misery nonsense. Poltergeist I can throw in if I want to give negative duels to willpower, but when Candy activates, she can AoE slow everybody, and then until she activates while she's hanging out in the center, she has the ability to make everyone that activates near her stun and pitch a card.
That's a really big problem for Zip.
It's a really big problem for a lot of people. So basically, and my opponent was running Zip with Burns. He ended up running 2 Flying Piglets, Maris, 2 Iron Skeeters, one of which had the Soldier for Hire upgrade,
Hmm.
and the first mate, and a Hans, one Hans. No, not two Hanses. That would be ridiculous. But he ran Hans, and the game was sort of pretty slow. We were pretty behind, I think, early, just sort of in Master Declaration. And I think that John had mentioned that he hasn't played a lot of 30. He's played mostly. He was a big grinder in second ed, but hasn't played a lot of third. So I was pretty confident we weren't going to finish the game, given our start. So I just sort of played how I planned to, but I think the long and the short of it is that he walked Zip with Burns up into roughly the center line, slightly closer to my table side, like where I was standing, pretty early. And I had Dorian. I went to Dorian because Dorian has his AoE bubble move, losing interest. He also has a boring conversation, which I don't unfortunately activate very frequently, because his other bonus action lets you move your whole crew, which is pretty powerful. And I Black Jokered it. So I was like, not really where I wanted to be. And I was like, okay, maybe we're not going to get Candy into position this turn. But then he delivered me a gift wrapped Earl Burns. And so I instead of doing what I was going to do, the Hooded Rider just went over and murdered him before he activated on turn 1, bringing Candy along with him. So I ended up having Candy sort of on the center line, but towards the left corner, my left corner. And by the end of the first turn, I had locked Zip, 2 Piglets, and Maris in the Candy bubble. And it just sort of went downhill from there. We actually only ended up finishing 2 turns, but oh no, that's not true. 3 turns. We ended up finishing 3 turns. In turn 1, because I didn't get everybody in sort of the where I wanted them to be, I didn't end up scoring claim jump with Candy, but Candy punished his hand pretty effectively, and he just sort of got shut down. I had all my ghosty boys run out and stun people, and Hans doesn't really like being stunned too well, especially when he's trying to shoot at things that have some combination of cover or incorporeal or both. And I ended up just squeaking out a 4-3 win because I was planning for the game ending early, and so I just scored 1 point on all my secondaries on the first, 1 point on spread them out, because I had a lot of ghosty boys.
Nice.
On the first turn, on the second turn, and then I scored spread them out for the end of the game, a point on kick the can, and then my claim jump when I just ran Candy over at the end of the game to go claim jump.
It's funny, we Adam and Jesse and I have been theory crafting that exact game for reasons that you guys might be aware of. We're doing that Vassal League, and I have to play Sam, and he is playing Outcast Zip, and I am playing Pandora.
I had Sam on Zip.
Wow, I had no idea that was going to happen. That's wild.
Yep. So,
Jake, you have to play Sam on Zip.
Yeah, but it's Outcast Zip.
Okay,
and
at least
Sam's
he doesn't
on
have 12
Pandora
cups.
too.
I'm on Pandora, and he's on Outcast Zip.
Dude, what do you know what the pool is? Obviously you do, but
I do. Yeah, I'm not sure right now, but we should talk.
Yeah, definitely. I had no idea. That's wild that happened, but I didn't feel not in control of the game.
Yeah.
At any point.
So I know you asked Jake about the aversion. I think the aversion, if you're going to do claim jump with Pandy 1, is more important. When you're playing Pandy 2, it really doesn't matter. She has like 3.5 million ways to move models.
Yeah.
Whether it be just attacking them and pushing them 4 inches, or because her misery around her makes her be able to do both. The ping and the 2-inch.
So the misery aura, where my whole crew can do different things to get you to misery proc, you take the damage and then I get to scoot you anyway, is very, very good for that. But also Pandora 2 has no shelter here, which is just wildly powerful.
Yeah, it's just she's all board control all day, and it's amazing.
Exactly. Yeah. I definitely like the idea of aversions, and I have mine, like I painted and built them, but I've literally never fielded them in Pandora 2 just because I've never needed her movement nonsense.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's summons in Pandora too, and you take them when you need to really just keep people off. But I mean, at the end of the day, with Pandora 2, you're summoning in the woes, you're hiring, you're summoning in the ghost woes, and you're hiring in the other stuff.
Yeah, and I mean when I'm summoning Pandora too, the only things I ever really summon are Sorrows, unless I have to summon Poltergeist back for marker removal purposes.
Yeah.
And like summoning in a Sorrow into a bubble where then suddenly they're going to have to activate 3 or 4 models, and they're all going to take a point of damage from Life Leech. I'll stun some of them; they'll take more damage. Then they have to fight my incorporeal dude, who I flipped shielded onto with Pandora's Compounding Emotions. Like there's just Sorrows are so versatile.
Yeah, and for that cost, I mean, they're decent little tar pits. You're not going to kill them in
Yeah.
one shot. It's almost never going to happen. So
Yep.
you have to hit them at least 2-3 times for something that you just summoned in, and it's going to
Yeah.
be a pain in the ass.
Yeah, and I usually hire one, especially in situations with like Break the Line, where I have like a Sorrow and maybe Hooded Rider if I need to, but Sorrow and Poltergeist to go out and interact. Yeah.
Nice. So, going to round 2, everyone won their game except for Doug, who lost to Jesse. And round 2 was standard deployment corrupted ley lines with outflank, research mission, detonate charges, vendetta, and claim jump again. So Jesse, what did you pick?
So I ended up going with Yoko in this one. I got paired into one of Brandon and Doug's locals, Kiernan, who played Yanlo. I ended up losing this game. Lost it by a point. It ended up 6-5 in Kiernan's favor. I took Yoko 1, which I felt like was, once I knew that he was playing Yan Lo, I based on it being ley lines, I kind of had a sense that it was probably going to be Yan Lo 2, just because he's so mobile and so damn good at ley lines. I didn't feel like there was going to be enough action in the middle to make Yoko 2 really worthwhile. And it probably would have been relatively easy for him to kind of overwhelm her. She does have some decent defenses with, slippery and stealth, but if you actually get into melee with her with a couple of big models, then she doesn't have a ton of defense. Yoko 1 at least can kind of defend herself with Serene Countenance and putting out a boatload of distracted, so I felt like she was the better choice. And I knew that Yanlo has a lot of low willpower models that she could really abuse to tear apart his hand, help me draw a bunch of cards, which is kind of how things played out. I ended up with 6 Stone Cash, Chio, of course, Bill Algren, Hinamatsu, a Samurai, a Charm Warder, Kunoichi, and a Geisha. Kiernan played Yanlo 2, which is what I thought he was going to play. Oh, he was Rezer Yanlo, incidentally. So he had the Whisper. He had a 5 Stone Cash, and he took, of course, Soul Porter, Manos, Yin, Komainu with Grave Spirit's Touch, another Komainu, Ashigaru, and a Kenshiro as well, the new Malifaux Burns model.
Nice. I'm happy that he didn't play Izamu. Because I've talked to him about this. Izamu is great when he's great, and then in certain matchups, he is just a paperweight. Yeah. And I think this would have been one of those matchups, just based on what you were playing.
Yeah, my idea with it was, the reason that I hired what I did was I felt like I was probably going to be able to control the middle with Bill and Hinamatsu and Yoko 1. Yoko just puts out so much distracted, and she can put it onto multiple models, and then Yin and Hinamatsu are just outstanding beaters. So I figured if he tried to meet me in the middle, I would outfight him. To his credit, that's not what he did. He played the edges, which is the reason that he won. In terms of the other picks, Hinamatsu might have been a mistake for reasons we'll get into when I go into the kind of game highlights. I took the Samurai just because I feel like in 10 Thunders, they have enough models that they have a significant ranged threat that you pretty much always want to take one of them. So you probably always want to take either a Samurai or what do you call it? The big guy there. What's his name? Misguided. The alternate version.
Fuhatsu.
Fuhatsu. There we go. I was going to edit that out, but I'm not going to. So you probably always want to take at least one of those, or potentially something else. But just because most of the crews don't innately have any kind of range threat, and that threat really warps the way that your opponent will tend to play against you, which is exactly what happened this game. Kiernan was really afraid of the samurai and played around trying to stay out of range of it. Obviously, he still ended up winning the game, but it was a constant concern for him, which is sort of the reason that I take it. A lot of times, the effect on your opponent's play can even be more than the effect of the model on the table, and I feel like samurai are kind of in that ballpark. The charm mortar obviously was to help deny the what do you call it? Demise abilities that he would have, especially if he ended up taking Yanlo 1.
Yeah, with Yanlo 2, the charm mortar doesn't really do much.
Right. Yeah, exactly. With Yanlo 2, it's much less of a concern because he can hand out the
reliquaries.
Before the models actually die. It's sort of the way that he works.
Yeah, and you're not doing demise abilities so much, and you're not summoning.
Right.
It's a really completely different play style.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, it was one of those models that, like, Charm Mortar is on its own a pretty good model, even if you don't necessarily need Lantern of Souls or the summoning thing. So it can do stuff on its own. Like, it's still got chi. It's got a good, Jinx is really powerful. I knew that if he took Yanlo 1 or Yanlo 2, that the melee attack that ignores incorporeal would potentially have a use. So I figured it was worth trying it in the event that he did take Yanlo 1, in which case it would have been clutch. In this case, it didn't really do as much as I would have liked, but I feel like it was a worthwhile risk. My plan was I was going to take excuse me. My plan was that I was going to take Vendetta with the Kunoichi, because they're really, really, really good targets for it. And then I was going to take Claim Jump on Bill, just because he's extremely good at defending the middle and keeping enemy models away from him. I ended up scoring 1 point on each of those. I ended up declaring my Vendetta a little earlier than I should have. I declared it turn 2. I really should have just waited, because I ended up taking Vendetta with the Kunoichi on his Komainu without the Grave Spirit's touch upgrade. It really wasn't going to do a whole lot that game, and it would have been fairly easy for me to lure it back in with some of my other models to score on turn 3 or 4. But I ended up scoring at turn 2, which gave him a ton of time to try and just hunt down the Kunoichi and kill it, which is exactly what he did. He ended up killing it the last turn, so that I didn't get a chance to score my second point. And then with Bill, he has enough. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Did Yanlo absolutely murder Hanamatsu?
Sort of. So that was what I was getting into. So there was a big table close to the middle of the table, and I put Hinamatsu into a fairly protected position so that she could help out with one of the Komainu in the middle, lure it into position so that I could score my turn 2 point. He ended up spending 2 AP with Yanlo to walk around the building and hit Hinamatsu with Twist Reality, and he stoned for the Hole in the World trigger. And I thought that the building was too big for him to be able to put Hinamatsu on the other side of it, and I was wrong. So all of a sudden, Hinamatsu got hit with Hole in the World, got placed on the other side of this building, out of line of sight of my entire crew, and took a little bit of damage. And then he ended up charging with Kenshiro, hit the ram trigger on his melee attack, and then red jokered the damage for like 6 or 7, ignoring armor. Yeah, it was pretty bad. So I lost her turn 1. She got like... Oh, no, I'm sorry. I lost her turn 2. I got like 2 attacks off with her. It was, no joke, the first time that I've ever played her. And she did 2 damage. It was great.
Oh, man. Well, Yanlo's basic attack, Darkest Magic, or not Darkest Magic,
Twist Reality.
The Twist Reality, it's no armor. I mean, so... And with the help of his reliquary, he can get like 4 or 5 attacks out of that. So yeah,
So
she should go down pretty quick.
that was a mistake. That was kind of my error in hiring. She would have been much better into Yanlo 1, and she was not particularly good into Yanlo 2 for exactly the reasons that you just mentioned. There were some other models that I might have considered taking instead. Surprisingly enough, I feel like the Emissary would have been a good choice because it has the concealment aura, which would really affect Yanlo's efficiency. He would end up having to spend some stones from a relatively limited cache, so that he just could get the plus flips to stay at straights for targeting his own models near me for obeys or for obeying my models, the twist realities, that kind of thing. There were a few other things that I could have taken instead, but I probably should have left Hinamatsu home this game. I think I was just too excited to be able to play her.
Cool. All right, moving on to Doug.
Yeah. So I went into round 2. I lost to Jesse, so I was going to stick to my plan, which was to play Max 2. This was another claim jump pool, so it was a perfect pick. I took claim jump without even really thinking about it. And then the other thing that I decided on was detonate charges. I built a list that had Fishbacher, which is the new Burns model in it, because I can move those guys around the board. I can move both friendly and enemy around the board into position, and I also hired Winston Finnegan. So let me give the list, I guess, first, and then I'll give an overview of the board and why what ended up happening was a little spicy. So my crew was Maxine 2, Orville, Harata, Calypso, Bebe, Machinist, Tidecaller, Fishbacher, and Winston Finnegan out of Keyword, and I had 2 stones, which was admittedly really low, but I will say that my play style is that I way prefer to have models on the table than stones in my pocket, I guess. And sometimes it really does really horrifically backfire for me, but a lot of the times I feel more confident in my ability to have additional resources in the terms of more activations and more models. So my lists tend to be really stone light. So you guys will see that.
Yeah, there was. There was an old saying in 2A that we used to say all the time, like in the top on the top tables. It was like Travis and everything like that. It was AP wins games. You can have 5 million stones. It doesn't matter. AP wins games.
Yeah, I like to think of Malifaux as like very similar to chess, and when I get more models on the board, I have another piece that I can move around, and it just gives me. I just prefer to play that style almost across the board. Anyway, so my opponent took Lucius 1. He hired Serena Bowman, 2 Insidious Madnesses, both out of Keyword, 2 Guild Lawyers, and 2 False Witnesses. It was important, I guess, to note that the board was primarily just like a big open X. So I knew basically wherever I set up, I was going to be able to throw the Tidecaller was going to be able to throw Max and Harata directly into combat immediately. And they have an effective threat range of 17 inches because they have their group fissure leap that, like, if you haven't played against Max 2 before, her fast action is a 5-inch group leap that, like, she just places wherever she wants, and she brings Harata with her, and Harata has the neg aura, and all of a sudden she's hitting you on a stat 6 that gives out injured, and you can stack injured, and in Malifaux, when things stack injured, they tend to die. So, you know, if you haven't played against Max 2, that's kind of what she does, and so I was really excited to do this. And effectively, my opponent activated his. I guess the intention of the list was to obey the Insidiouses into the middle of the board, and then take attacks with them, and then have the witnesses give neg flips, just like how Harata gives neg flips, and then also have Bowman be able to attack through them because she can attack through nightmares, I guess. But the problem was that he was really, really aggressive, moving them into the middle of the board on turn 1, and I immediately killed one on turn 1, and then top of 2 killed the other. So he had no threats left in his list, and then it ended up being I ended up winning the game 5-1. He scored 1 point on a primary, but other than that, he basically never left a corner of his deployment zone because he didn't want to get anywhere near Max and Harata.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out why he would take the Insidious Madness. I mean, That's 16 points for two, decent minions. Yeah, that's a little weird with a master who has so many amazing tools in his keyword. But
Yeah, I don't
guess
know. I think the plan. I think the plan, from what I was watching him do, was that he thought his madnesses were going to survive a lot longer than they did, and he was betting around setting up neg auras off of his witnesses that could also score him detonate.
right.
I think that's what he's trying to do.
I mean,
Okay.
witnesses are cool for detonate. I mean, I can see how that is like the scheme to do with them. You know what I mean?
He was double dipping. He was double dipping on that, which is actually a good plan,
Yeah.
and then giving the neg auras out. But the problem is, I looked at the list and I was like, cool, if I kill those two things, this whole Rube Goldberg machine stops functioning. And so I pointed my max missile at those two things, and I schmongled them as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
Basically.
Cool. All right, Adam.
I played Brendan.
Yeah.
Excellent.
We did it.
We did. It was actually a ton of fun. I'll let Brendan go into what he took and why, and then I'll roll into what I took and why, and then we can kind of
Well,
it
it was
up from there.
It was actually an incredibly flavorful game because I, having seen the scheme pool, which was ley lines, outflank research mission. Basically, I read the words corrupted ley lines and research mission, so I auto declared Titania. I windmill slammed her onto the board, and so I took Titania. And some people might question me on this, but it's sort of uncharacteristic. But I did decide to take the Gorar as well.
Oh, well, I think that was a good move.
Right. And then I took one Rugaru, two Boltungen, the Malifaux Rex, an Autumn Knight, and a Waldgeist. No upgrades. So I started the game with 5 Soulstones. I basically, my game plan was, as I often do in games with Titania, I was going for Research Mission Outflank because Boltungen got a huge new buff. The fact that they're hard to kill now is wild. Their new marker action, Homeward Bound, is head and shoulders above. And my plan was to really try and fake claim jump with the Malisaurus.
Did you fall for it, Adam?
I don't know. I think I was ready to give him claim jump. The problem is we never got to a point where there wasn't something engaged with something in the middle.
Yeah,
So...
yeah. The board. I will say the board that we were playing on was sort of choked for 50 mils. It was like sort of a swamp village, and there were two. It was a lot of big houses, and we sort of spread them out as best we could. But the big houses sort of made it so that there was one avenue over to the left side, and then there was one big avenue right in the middle of the board. And that sort of was the choke point that we met at.
Yeah. What did you play, Adam?
So this is who I wanted to play when I said I wanted to go and at least play this master once. I played Euripides. I played Euripides too.
I told Adam as soon as we started, look, if you don't throw this game, I'm gonna take your magic eye powers back. I swear to God.
But I took Euripides too because I was looking at him and he's kind of baller and I want to play him. For schemes, I ended up taking Research Mission, obviously.
Wait, what? A Titania Euripides match where the board was 45% markers by the end of turn 1?
Yeah, shocking, right?
And you took Research Mission?
And I took Detonate Charges as my second.
There was a point in this game where I was like, all right, I don't know what your second scheme is. It's obviously Research Mission like we both have. And I think I said something to the effect of, if you took Detonate Charges because you have that one ability on the one Cyclops that you had in your list, I'm going to lose my goddamn mind. Lo and behold, it was we were getting right to the end of the third round, and he was like, well, Cyclops, activate Detonate Charges. I was so mad.
Adam, was the board a challenge for you with all 50 mils?
No, and I'll tell you why. So I took Euripides 2, Primordial Magic, Thune, Cyclops, 2 Gigants, the Damned, and the Gurion. Earlier in the day, I was talking with Jesse, and I was like, man, Jesse, I really like these models, but I have no fucking clue what I'm ever going to do with a Gurion. I just don't understand what they do.
Oh, dude.
And he's like,
Gurion.
oh, well, they're kind of tanky. So here's the deal, right? When I was talking about Euripides, I was like, man, people don't say that Neverborn don't have a gun line, but Euripides can shoot, Gigants can shoot, And going into this, I'm like, if I play Euripides and I play these Gigants, I'm gonna load up focus on them, and then between Heptomancy and the old ways, I'm just gonna abuse the shit out of those mechanics and cheat in high damages, and then use those high damages to make my second attack and get the high hit. That didn't come into play because his entire crew has hard to wound.
Right. Yeah. I remember we were talking about that at the start, and I was going to say, I don't think I saw you take the throw boulder action.
Yeah. Well, it ended up being moot. So I ended up saying, you know what I'm going to do instead? I shot once with Euripides, and then I was like, you know what? Avalanche is fucking good.
Dude, Avalanche is, I think, the best ability on his card.
Easily.
It's wildly good.
Easily. So all I did was just push the Gurion around as my football carrier through everything.
Yeah.
And just push us. Oh, and by the way, Absolute Zero, his free action is like better blow it to hell.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing.
It's blow it to hell that can occasionally drop like 5 ice pillars.
Yeah, and at least drop 1 ice pillar. That's not going to go away, so it's a marker for you. Right? And its range is long. It goes off easily. It's really good. So essentially, that's my game plan. Was I'm going to take research mission because research mission, but also he can counter research mission because he can get rid of a bunch of markers. And between the Damned and the Cyclops being able to drop scheme markers within the drop scheme markers in base with the ice pillars, I figured I'd be able to get some points out of the detonate charges. But Thune, man, Thune, you might as well just call Titania Ice Pillar number 4 because that's what she was for the entire game.
Hey, I never pitched an activation with her. That's very important.
You did it, but you pitched a Mallosaurus activation to get her out.
like one time, and then I did a Bolt 101, and then I did a fucking whatever one. Yeah, so like I recall, I've played Thune before. I played back in the very early days of my being in Malifaux. I had just bought all of Neverborn, and I played a couple of games with Euripides 1. And I remember playing Euripides 1 and Thune just like never hitting. I never had a tome. And like, even though he has intuition, like I just couldn't get it to click. And so I basically just ignored. I know the Frozen Trophy ability. I've seen it. We've talked about it. It's a bonkers henchman hardcore crew, led by Thune, having a doppelganger to just like make sure that you Frozen Trophy something. Like you're guaranteed to get it at least once a turn. Well, a total of once per turn because it's once per turn. But it just, it's like, it's so good, but I just I've never seen him do it before. But Titania with defense 5, all you have to do is hit.
Now, Adam, did you consider Callgeist, or is it just that you don't have a model for it?
You know what? Well, 1, I don't have the model, and 2, I don't think I ever came into a position where I really needed it. Only because Euripides, I don't think Euripides 2 needs a ton of the of the ice pillars. And he spits out 1 very easily, and then the Cyclops spits out another one. So yeah. I don't think there was ever a point where I was like, man, I really wish I had this mobile model that
the mobile ice pillar part's neat, but like, I mean, I think a lot of their versatility is that they're sort of tanky. They have a little bit of armor and they can move people, and like Euripides 2 just does all of those things.
Yeah, so I don't need the extra little bumps and pushes because I just push models through stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, they might be a lot better for Raspy than they are for Euripides.
Yeah, I think that's
so.
where they are. I think that's really where they are. I mean, and there's some models. There's a few models from Malifaux Burns that are just better with 1 master than they are.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, can't avoid that. So, what was the final score?
Oh man,
I don't remember. I know Adam won. I think we ended up talking it out to be like 6-5 or 6-4 or something.
Yeah, I think it was. I'm pretty sure it was
7-5.
I think it was 6-4. It was like a 2-point swing, I believe.
Yeah. Yeah. Basically, we found ourselves in the position where I couldn't. I had scored. We were both going to get research mission. There was nothing changing that. But and we both had basically infinite ley lines. I think we both had that. But I got shut down off of outflank because of a what was it? You threw the Damned up there first, who then I just murdered.
Yeah.
I was like, I might as well throw a pot shot at the Damned, and I accidentally severe red jokered him. And then it just died, and I was like, oh, okay, well. there's one less problem we have to worry about.
Yeah, I ran the damned hard up the left flank because he had a bull tongue in there, and I just had him eat the bull tongue in, which screwed up his outflank.
If we had gone maybe to have enough time to play round 5, I might have scored 1 point because I was thinking about hucking either Titania. Oh, you know what it was? I hucked Titania over there earlier, but I had to activate her early to get her out of the range of just dying.
Yeah.
And because I had to do her early, you went and picked up the marker next round.
It's so easy with
Euripides.
With too. It's 10 inches away.
Yeah.
Like he walks over and he says, "Oh, you got a ski marker over there?" No, you don't.
Yeah.
You know,
and I think what's likely if we had actually gotten to round 5 is I probably would have scored the outflank point, but I think that I may not have had enough models left to score my second point in research mission because I may not have had 3 models left.
Yeah.
It was definitely a good game. I had a great time, and I'm taking away your second sight powers because I gave them to you in the first place. And
the hype is real though. Euripides 2 is really, really good.
Yeah. Head and shoulders above Euripides 1. I just don't see. I mean, we'll talk about it, in the future, in that when we get to the in a couple days when we get to the Neverborn faction focus. But man, Euripides 2 he's so good, and the hepatomancy ability it's definitely tricky. There's a lot of sort of minutia to it about like what cards go where, when you can use it, and when it's good. But when it hits, man, it just whoo.
Yeah, I think the trick with him is going to be finding the balance between the heptomancy and abusing the old ways.
Yeah,
because I know a lot of people have been like, "Oh, use it to look at your opponent's deck." You know what I mean? But it's like, well, if you use it to look at yours, and you see you have 2 face cards, you can discard one and then old ways to get that token back and use that card, knowing what the next card's going to be. You know, I mean, I think there's a lot of play in there. It's just a matter of. It
gives you almost, it feels to me as I've played it almost feels like right as the action's about to hit, we have like a slow-mo action sequence where I'm like computing the possibilities and I'm like, okay, I know what's going to happen, and then we snap back to reality and I'm like, oh wait, hepatomancy, get wrecked, noob.
Yeah,
this is kind of a conversation that Adam and I were having in the car, and one of the things that I said was I think you always look at your opponent's deck, and after hearing you guys talk about it, I'm like, well, no. If you look at your own deck, it's almost like playing with an 8-card hand.
Almost, yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
And like I'm saying, if the old ways wasn't on that card, it would probably almost always be better to look at your opponent's hand.
Yeah, but and to be fair, because he has one of the 2 sources of Arcane Reservoir in Neverborn, it's almost like playing with a 9-card hand.
But,
yeah.
I mean, I enjoyed playing him. He has crazy movement shenanigans. And I think once I play something that's not hard to wound, I think it can murder stuff from range.
Yeah, he has definite legs, and I think he's not a very friendly beginner master for sure, because there are a lot of ways for you to just like kneecap yourself from the fact that your whole crew, except for the Bolt 100, which you really need to put together, Adam. Holy crap, they're so good. Except for the Bolt 100s, the whole crew's 50 is based on a 50 mil. You have like some trickery to make one of them incorporeal with the totem, but it just that, and like making minute like a series of bad choices about when to use the old ways or like when to stone for things or when to use your hepatomancy, you can wreck yourself, but the upside is so much higher. He's a real finesse master in the form of a beat stick, and that's just everything I love about Neverborn.
Yeah.
Okay.
And just one real quick thing. I know your damned got murdered, but just having the damned in that crew now is
it's huge.
It's huge.
Yeah, it's huge. He's like that schemer that they always wanted.
Is this like because the damned? Oh, because the damned came out after Euripides did.
Correct.
Yes.
Right. Oh, I thought you were making a joke because the damned was out of stock for almost the entire time I've been playing this game until very recently. No. But no, he was newer. He was a new release than Euripides. Oh, I see.
And he gave you that. He's really a jack of all trades model that is a fantastic schemer for them, and it's something that they never really had that they could go. Can go out and do that.
I take the damned all the time in ES, and he's always like when I look at I'm an ex Magic player / current Magic player, and I call it a sideboard in my mind. It's a sideboard of tech that I look to, and the Damned is always one of the front stat cards in my sideboard in an ES, because he literally exactly what Adam is saying. Like, but ES even more so, because ES, if they're lacking for one thing, it's raw punching power. They tend to have models that do a lot of different things that are very interesting, but they don't have a lot of like just raw damage. And while it's not the best attack in the world, it is stapled onto a model with a suitless leap that can guarantee some pretty nasty ass severe punches on people, and is very, very independent. It can operate on a flank by itself, no synergy needed. Send it after a thing, schmirkle face that thing, and then move on and kill the next thing. It just so happens that in Max 2, I almost auto take him a lot because he does have insane synergy with Breach Burnt. But like, even without that Breach Burnt synergy, that guy is the truth. I think
That's exactly why you used to see Archie and Manos in every Reser list, right? It was that essentially suitless leap, and then they can beat your face when they get there.
Yeah, and that's what he does. But one more thing on Euripides 2, and then I'll stop with him.
I also have another thing on him, but
Okay. Brandon and Adam just need to do a Neverborn deep dive.
Yeah. Adam, I challenge you to a series of games where we play alternating Euripides for a championship Euripa belt.
Euripa belt. Euripides 2 is awesome. Euripides 2 and the Gigants and everything like that are even more awesome with a second master that can spam focus upon them. So you play Euripides 2 with Pandora 2, and you're going to murder everything. You're going to murder everything because she can just plink them each for one, give them stunned, and then turn that stunned into like a fast and a focus, and now all your shit is having focus with its damage track of like 2, 4, 6, and you're just going to murder everything.
And that's why in New England we're doing single master for the rest of time.
Because the keyword itself has no real way to spam focus out. Like, you have to actually do the work, and they did that on purpose because they all have the high damage tracks.
Yeah, having an entire crew that's basically Min 3.
Listen, do you want Mayfang Hoff 2? Because this is how you get Mayfang Hoff 2. Nobody wants that. Let's just play single master and be
you can have
people.
You can have all the Mayfang Hoff 2 you want. I'll just take
Nobody wants any of this.
One,
no, nobody wants any of this. Let's all put it away. Let's all put our guns back in our pockets and move on.
Yeah, right? Adam, just imagine if you were playing Yuri 2 before Black Blood Shaman got fixed, and then you would have balls and damage.
I mean, that was the only way that Euripides 1 was viable as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. All right, moving on.
Yeah, moving on. So, last game of the day, Wedge, Turf War, Bait and Switch, Hidden Martyr, Catch and Release, Breakthrough, and Deathbed. So a good old-fashioned, lots of murder type game. Why don't we switch the order up here and start with Doug?
Oh, yeah, sure. Hold on, let me open my notes really quickly.
Sorry.
No, it's fine.
I'm prepared for this.
No, I'm prepared.
I see that Jesse and Brandon played each other, so I figured I'd save that until last.
I literally took notes.
Sounds good to me.
Right. So this game was actually kind of interesting. It's a murdery pool, which Max is great at. So again, I looked at Max. The board was really crazy. It was covered in huge buildings with actually very little, I guess, like, map exposed. And these were like height 7, height 8 buildings. And then they had like these railway things that made it almost impossible for normal models to move through. And my opponent declared outcasts. And so I was trying to think what I should do and what I could take. I ended up taking Spread Them Out and Hidden Martyrs. I like Hidden Martyrs as a dark horse pick out of Max because Orville is so very good at it. If you serve him up, people will attack him with zeal because they love to kill Orville because he's a significant model. So I was pretty confident that I could get a pretty fast point on that. And Calypso is pretty good at Spread Him Out, and he ignores vertical distances, so strap him in and go after it is kind of what I was thinking. I had no idea what my opponent was going to declare. My list was Max, Orville, Machinist, Fishbacher, Calypso, Bebe, Hirata, Austera and Twig out of keyword, and the Damned out of keyword. And then my opponent was on the Vix, old school Vix. They took Student of Conflict, a Prospector, Big Jake, Bishop, a Wuku Raider with Servant of Dark Powers, and a Ronin with Servant of Dark Powers. I think their thought process was that the Wuku Raider was like, they had some points left over and wanted to upgrade their Ronin into a Wuku, but I'm not really sure. And that's what they took, yeah.
Man, I'm surprised they didn't take the wanted criminal on the Ronin. That just
Yeah,
makes them bonkers.
Yeah, I think they wanted the movement. I don't really know. It was a really weird game because I certainly did not want to run Maxine into the Vix. Like, that was the one thing I was not gonna do. Oh, sorry. You know what I messed up? He had because I killed him on turn one. This was a big part of the game. I don't think it was a Ronin. I think that Ronin was who's the guy in the trench coat with the knife? I forget his name. Who used to have the leap and they nerfed him. The
Midnight Stalker.
Oh, the Midnight Stalker.
Yeah, Midnight Stalker.
Yeah.
It was a Midnight Stalker. His hidden martyrs were Midnight Stalker and Big Jake. And he took. Go ahead.
How did you
was
kill
John
the
the
Midnight
Outcast
Stalker
guy,
so
right?
fast?
What'd you say?
How did you kill the Midnight Stalker so fast?
He move leaped him into this really weird position, and I think my opponent had never seen Maxine 2's fast ability before, so he activated very early. And think of the board as like a very narrow tunnelway of like streets, effectively surrounded by like 4, 5, 6, 7 height random nonsense things, or like impassable railroads. And he moved the Midnight Stalker pretty early to try to get him into the position to the right side of my deployment zone on the far right side. So he like move leaped him, and then I was able to lead the way from Biao, and then use the Aethermatic Rift ability to get her really far along with Hirata over this really weird, seemingly impassable obstacle because I could still draw line of sight for the shockwave. And it blipped both Max and Hirata right into melee with Midnight Stalker, and I schwambled him as quickly as possible because it was turn one, and even if that was his martyr, which it ended up being one of, he wasn't going to score it. So I sold out to just hard throw them to the side into the Stalker and kill it immediately.
That's pretty big.
Yeah. And then the rest of the game was basically I ran around the corners of the maps, and I used Austera to drop ski markers for spread them out, and I used Bebe to also do that. Like Bebe and the Bebe Calypso combo, you know, where you just kind of twiddle them on and off and they make a bunch of ski markers in a row. And then I was able to play the denial game basically because I pulled backwards and split out and then went up the sides, and I made him use all his AP to chase me around the board while I was still being effective enough to like remove a model every turn or so. And so the game ended up being 5-2. I scored 2 on Spread Them Out. I scored 1 on Hidden Martyrs because my other Hidden Martyr was Calypso, and he was scoring Spread Them Out, so he wasn't going to be able to get all the way back to get like across the board into contact with a model I didn't want to be in contact with anyway, basically. And I scored 2 on the primary, and my opponent scored 2 on the primary. Yeah.
Nice. So you ended with 2 wins and a loss?
Yeah.
Cool. So you probably knew you had a good chance at podium.
Yeah, I mean, Jesse's a really good player, so I was like really, really excited to have played Jesse and been like happy. Like, I wasn't happy to have lost, but I was happy to have kind of held my own. And then my other 2 games were, you know, I did pretty well in them, and I was pretty confident, and I executed the game plan of playing Max 2, I think. And so it was a really good exercise for me because, like we talked about at the beginning of the episode, I really wanted to see, like, is this master viable? she seems like one of the things that fits my playstyle, which is like the most fun that I had before I found Seamus 1 was playing Lady J1, where you just like leap into people with a lead line cloak and like schmongle people, you know?
Mhm.
And Max does that, but she brings her buddies because she can bring Hirata with, and Tidecaller can Goku punch people up the board, so you can initiate combat with Max with a relatively clean line of engagement from like 17 inches away, locking your opponent on a neg flip, like pretty easy.
Yeah, yeah. And how do you like Fishbacher?
He's awesome. Oh
He
my
seems
gosh.
awesome.
So a really big thing about Fishbacher that a lot of people may not have picked up on in Max, specifically Maxine, is Fishbacher is the only model in EVS tag that has a ram suit. So he turns on a quarter of the deck for things like breach burnt triggers. So and I didn't talk about this yet, but I'll talk about it now because it's critical to how Max 2 functions, is breach burnt is an absolutely insane ability. Like, as the Maxine player with all of my reconfigure cards, I can kind of control how I want to cheat a hand and then only hold on to very, very high cards for basically what I call like math battles against people where you just have to force a hit or something, right? So I'm getting breach burnt so often because I'm using the reconfigure for that 9, which is then burst healing targets because it's, a burst heal on an aura of 6 effectively. So I can get a lot of those triggers off, and having the RAM turned on is a big deal because now I can do things like I get a breach burnt trigger when I reconfigure. Oh, and by the way, that 9 means that I also get a min 3 heal off of him. Or like, oh, by the way, like I can guarantee lead the way. Like it's when I'm doing it on or like a friendly, it hits the TN. It's a big deal.
Cool.
So, yeah.
All right, Adam, what did you play?
So in the last round, I knew I wanted to play some kind of Pandora. Um, I
You
ended
were
up
also 2-0 at this point.
I
So
was 2-0 at this point. I knew I wanted to play some kind of Pandora. I didn't know if I wanted to play Pandy 1 or Pandy 2. I ended up going into Pandy 2 with this one. And I don't know if necessarily there's a reason for it, except, I mean, I guess there was kind of a meta reason for it, because I know he was playing Yanlo too for the other 2 games, so I figured he would bring Yanlo 2 into this one. And I think that Pandora 2 would be the better matchup there because she can turn all that stunned he's putting out into beneficial conditions for my models. Um, and I just wanted to play Pandora 2. So what I ended up taking was Pandora Tyrant Torn, the Poltergeist, Candy, Baby Cade, Teddy, the Hooded Rider, and Aversion, and the Wicked Doll. And if you don't know, the Wicked Doll is to make it so you're essentially always on negatives to attack Pandora at all
it's
times.
a little tricky though against Yan Lo.
It is and it isn't because threaten isn't like a once. You can just threaten twice and put both.
Oh, okay. So you can do Ancestor and
correct.
Retainer.
So you put Ancestor and Retainer. So
Nice.
you just threaten twice and call it a day. But also cute with the Wicked Dolls is that they are in fact significant. So a lot of the times they might be overlooked and they can just go and snatch up things. In this particular instance, I ended up taking for schemes. I took Catch and Release on the Aversion because the Aversion can push all the other models away from him, so he could be alone with whoever he's trying to catch and release. And I took Hidden Martyrs, and for the Hidden Martyrs, I had the Poltergeist and I had Candy. Candy is particularly hard to remove because 1, she's a henchman. 2, with about the 53 different ways I can put stunned out. If you don't have triggers, she's reducing the damage by 2. And she has the heal, which is other models as well. But yeah, she's manipulative. So I figured she'd be a solid anchor to the Hidden Martyrs. He had taken a Yellow 2 crew, I believe he had the Whisper on Yanlo, Soul Porter, Manos, Yin, Chiaki, a Gokudo, two Komanu, both with Grave Spirit's Touch, I believe, if I remember correctly, which is actually a really solid upgrade for them.
It's very, very good because the way that you stop Yanlo too is by killing the minions, and it is not easy to kill a Komanu with Grave Spirit's Touch.
It really isn't, especially in this particular instance where I didn't really have a way to ignore armor.
Were you playing Kiernan?
I was, yes.
Okay, so you're because he was soloing Yanlo too.
Yeah.
He drove up with me and Brandon.
Yeah. So what was the real linchpin in this game is I believe it was turn 1 actually. He threw Manos really far up. He overextended with Manos, and then I was able to walk. Walk Baby Cade, and then Where's Teddy to pull Teddy up to Manos, so I didn't have to charge, and then I just ate him with Teddy. I just beat the ever living piss out of him with Teddy. I think I spiked like maybe two of his damage flips, and he just destroyed him. And then once Manos was down, it was tough for him to really do anything on the left side of the board. But what was funny was I actually, in my normal Pandora game, I like really get her up far and I just start jamming right away with summons. Even Pandora 1, I do the same thing. Is I really want to extend her up and either jam with Pandora herself and maybe Candy or get some summons out there. So I had the Hooded Rider run her up and she's in the middle of the board. A version pushes her up another 3 inches. I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna jam the fuck out of this guy. And I get stunned out and then I cast Sorrow out and then he's just like, okay, cool. And then like he obeys a model and then Yanlo bounces with him. And like all of a sudden, like there's nobody in the center, and I'm planning on my game in the center, and everybody's just all like going around on the flanks. I'm like, what the fuck is this? So I had to really, really change up the way I wanted to play that game. But luckily, I think I had enough maneuverability between the Hooded Rider and just Pandora in general. Because for the most part, Pandora ended up not playing a big part of the game for the first 2 turns because he just kind of abandoned the center. So I just had Pandora start like flipping the turf markers in the back. And I had like a Wicked Doll flip one in the back. And the Hooded Rider was really doing a lot of the heavy work. He had, there was one point where he was engaged with the Aversion and the Poltergeist with Yanlo. And I'm like, oh, thank God, he's going to kill my Poltergeist. Like kill that thing, Like, I'll just summon another one, that's fine, but kill that thing. And he didn't kill the Poltergeist. He was attacking the Aversion. And I'm like, is this Bizarro World? Like, what the fuck is going on? Why is he not trying to kill my Poltergeist? Like, the Aversion doesn't do anything. Is he on to me? I think he's on to me. But he was like, no, I just really hated that model. I wanted to kill it. So I ended up only getting 1 point out of that with the catch and release. And he did eventually kill the Poltergeist, which I was lucky because I wouldn't have gotten the points for it. But he did kill the Poltergeist. I think it ended up being, I want to say like 6-4 or 7-4. I know I got at least 3 of the Turf Wars. And I think I got both for the. Yeah, I did. I got both for the Hidden Martyrs, and I got one for Catch and Release. But yeah, it was a good game. It was just really janky. Like I was trying to like chasing him around the board is so difficult.
Yeah. Yanlo 2 is so fun. He's so awesome, and I think he's one of the most successful version 2s that they came out with because he is so completely different from the way that you play Yanlo 1 and his crew. And he makes the whole crew play different.
He's completely different, but he's still effective, which is really
super effective. Yeah, very effective. They're both very solid playable options. And yes. I mean, Kiernan played him 3 rounds and was on table 1 for the 3rd game. So good for him.
Yeah, I think just overextending Manos, I think, just is what really threw that game.
Adam, you want to hear something really funny?
Sure.
The first thing he said to me when we sat down at dinner after the tournament was, man, I overextended Manos and Adam schmongled me. He literally, that was the first thing he said to me, because all of his tournament practice had been against me. So I've played against Yonlo 2. I've never played Yonlo 2, but I've played against Kiernan on Yonlo 2 like probably 6 or 7 times now.
I've also played against him like 4 times, but
Yeah, because that's all he plays. And I told him, I was like, just go to this event. Yonlo 2 is bananas. Just play him in every pool because it doesn't matter. And he was like, okay, fine, I will. And then the first thing he said was, man, I overextended with Manos and Adam schmongled me.
I played against Kieran at the tournament that you guys ran, and he played Yonlo 2. I was playing Raspy, and I was Raspy 2 actually. And
But was it 2 or 1?
He was playing Yonlo 2, I believe. Yeah, he was. But you know what? He kind of overextended Manos, and I went hard at Manos, and it took me my entire crew, but I took him out. And after that, he was like, "Oh, I can't score points now." And I was like, "Yeah, I know. I play on low. That's why you kill Manos, because Manos is the guy that's going to score the points."
Yeah, he's always the most frustrating part of that crew.
Mm-hmm.
Always.
Mm-hmm.
He's so good.
Yep. I mean, Yonlo 2 is a little different because Yonlo 2 himself will score points, but for the most part, if you're up against the Ancestor crew, Manos is the linchpin. He is the one that's going to actually get victory points.
Yeah, I think playing in Yonlo 2, he's super mobile. He'll move a bazillion inches on the board in a turn, but the problem is you kind of know where he's going to be because he is anchored on something. Whereas Manos has the ability to move around everywhere he wants to, so you can kind of dictate where he's going to go. I got to a point in our game where it was all right, well, I know if I kill him, he's going to go to this minion. So I really want to kill him now because I got to get the catch and release off on him, Yeah, I mean, it was a good game. It was a great game. He's a really good player. He knows Yenlo too. I think he just overextended right away with Manos, which cost him an entire flank, and then I was able to really stay on one side, which didn't help.
Awesome. All right, and that was 3 W's for Adam. Again, is it your second tournament in a row?
Oh, I don't know.
So modest. It is. I
don't know.
Second one in a row. Brandon and Jesse.
Oh.
Yeah. So, we played into round 3. I ended up taking Mayfang 2, which, like I said at the start of the pod, was the master that I was the most excited about playing. And I felt like this was a pretty good round for her. I ended up taking, excuse me, Cache of 4, Forgeling, of course, Metal Golem, Dawn Serpent, which was kind of a weird pick, Obsidian Statue, which I know Jake and I have talked a little bit about before, and just seems to function really well with Mayfang 2, so I was really committed to making a crew that had the statue, the golem, and Mayfang 2 in it. Sparks, Rail Worker, and a Survivor. Brandon, what'd you take?
Yeah, so I was sort of looking at wanting to play Dreamer at some point throughout the day. He's just one of my favorite masters to play, so I decided that the best Dreamer for this match would be Dreamer 2, where I didn't do a lot of summoning, but I had a lot of value. So I played Dreamer 2 with Chompy Bits. I took Widow Weaver because I saw that Jesse had declared Mayfang, and that means that I was going to have an all the scrap you can eat buffet. I took my normal sort of go-to plan with Dreamer is that I always take 2 Daydreams, both with the Ancient Pact upgrade, because it is an insanely effective card draw engine. So I basically take 2 Daydreams always when I'm playing Dreamer, 1 or 2, it doesn't matter. Both with that upgrade. I took a Wicked Doll because I always take a Wicked Doll all the time because they're the best model in Neverborn. And then in Dreamer 2, you really need to have a good amount of models with the Lucid Dream action. So I hired 2 Insidious Madnesses in Keyword because they're just really good. And then also, again, we're talking Mayfang here. A lot of armor, a lot of stuff. And so Serena Bowman just seemed like a natural fit here. planning to go for Breakthrough and Hidden Martyrs. Serena Bowman also makes an amazing Hidden Martyr because she is impossible to kill while not being too expensive at 8 stones. So I usually like to throw a Wicked Doll and Serena Bowman as my martyrs, and then the Breakthrough is just really easy to do when you have a bunch of incorporeal dudes that can run around the board and do whatever they want.
Yeah, for real. In terms of my hiring decisions, I mean, the Battle Golem's sort of an auto include, so is Sparks with Mayfang 2. I took the Obsidian statue mostly because I wanted to do a little bit more kind of control in the center, and I wanted to leverage their ability to drop scrap markers when they get hit.
Yeah,
I
that was
ended
the
up
first time
taking-
I had ever played against one. I've never seen one before, so
Yeah, it's not a commonly taken model at a whopping defense, I think 3.
it is defense 3. Yeah,
Yeah, pretty easy to hit. I ended up taking deathbeds and chose scrap markers. Unsurprisingly, it's probably a pretty good pick for Mayfang in general, especially because of the trigger on her attack action to hand out conditions, and then I can also make my models take a general action, so you can drop scheme markers out of activation, which is pretty cool. A trick that I completely forgot about the entire game and never did once, so go me. Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
Wild.
And then I ended up going with Hidden Martyrs with a Survivor and Sparks, because I figured Sparks is going to be in the middle. He doesn't have a lot of ability to defend himself, and he causes a ton of problems for my opponent. So he's a pretty good target for Martyrs. They're going to have to deal with him, or he's going to really punish them. And Survivors are, like their name, pretty difficult to kill. So they're pretty good at denying that second Martyr's point, and there's plenty of models that are higher cost than them that they can get into base contact with towards the end of the game.
So Jesse,
Oh, sorry.
oh, go ahead.
I think Survivors are pound for pound one of the most cost-effective in keyword, just excellent. They're five, right?
Mhm.
Or they,
Yep, they're 5.
that's crazy. They're so good
They're
for 5.
they're very, very good.
Yeah,
They're
one
good.
of those, like the 5. This kind of comes up a lot in discussion. This is sort of a tangent, but like the 5 stone slot is a weird one because usually models at 5 stones are too easy to kill, and they have some cool tech, but like you can usually one shot them, and that's a real deterrent to taking them. Survivors are totally the opposite because they have cool tech, because they have magnetism with a reverse polarity trigger, so you can push the target instead of pushing the model towards it. They do a respectable amount of damage. They have a couple of triggers to do multi-attacks or do multi-pings of damage, and they're legitimately hard to kill. I mean, they have armor 1, hard to kill with Scamper. Like I would say they're probably the best 5 stone model.
They're
Yeah.
stupid.
In the game.
They're
In
like-
fact,
they're
yeah. Go ahead.
They do everything you want them to do for 5 stones, are really, really difficult to remove from the board, have amazing movement, counter movement. They're just the bee's knees.
Mhm.
Yeah, they're great.
I always find when I'm making Mayfang lists that I can never justify taking a rail worker just because a survivor is so much better. Like I'll make a list and I'll be like, sure, I'll take one of each, and then I'm like, but why? But why would I not just take 2 survivors?
I ended up taking the rail worker mostly because I wanted the turn 1 movement, so I could toss the metal golem up 4 or 5 inches and the obsidian statue 4 or 5 inches. In retrospect, I could have just taken the survivor and hoped to draw into the suit that I needed to do a reverse polarity magnetism and then push the model.
Yeah, or you you rail walk it, because a lot of times that ends up being more efficient than tossing.
Exactly. So,
but why the Dawn Serpent?
Jesse, why the Dawn Serpent?
Yeah, what's that all about?
Right, so we didn't really talk about the board that much. So the board this map was a little weird in that it was a kind of like a South or Central American themed like board with big gigantic stone buildings, big gigantic stone statues, fairly limited movement lanes, and I knew that the center was going to be super clogged up. And because of my deployment zone, I was going to end up having to go kind of like around a big building, which would have cost a 1 Udo, which is what I'd usually put in that slot. Basically a turn's worth of movement. And it was going to be the same regardless of which deployment zone I ended up with, just because of the way these buildings were laid out. So I felt like this particular game, I was really going to benefit from the Dawn Serpent having flight. And plus, the Dawn Serpent has pretty good synergy with the Obsidian statue. It's got a pretty sizable pulse of like 5 or 6 inches, where it can potentially hand out a lot of burning on a suit. I did end up doing it once, and then Brandon just pitched his whole hand because he's Dreamer too.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, we're all set.
Yeah. So it wasn't as much of a penalty for him as it would have been for other masters, but you can potentially put a lot of hand pressure on your opponent, and then you're handing out a bunch of burning, and then your Obsidian statue can increase that burning during the start phase every turn, regardless of range or line of sight, which is pretty dope. And I really wanted something that was going to be able to get to his backfield and kill his daydreams or his Wicked Doll if it stayed back there, because the Dawn Serpent isn't a super common pick, but it still has a respectable 3-4-5 damage track, and it does have Breath of Fire, which is like probably one of the best ranged attacks in the game. And that's exactly what happened. Basically, I was able to get it into his backfield. I was able to pulse out, try to pulse out some burning, but he just discarded his whole hand.
Yeah, I wonder if that's ever happened in the history of Malifaux before.
Yeah, exactly. It's like never a good thing for the opponent to do that, but it was this game.
Okay, so it did its job.
It did its job. I mean, I ended up killing the Wicked Doll, and I killed the Daydream with it.
Yep.
And scored a point. So, it's pretty good.
Yeah. Fair. What about you, Brandon? What did you play?
Yeah, so my sort of plan going into this was I saw a Rail Golem. I knew I haven't been playing this game long enough to know that's what it used to be.
Metal Golem.
Metal Golem. I saw a Metal Golem, and I was like, I'm gonna kill that. So I really sort of just decided to go all in. I had a high tome in my hand. Actually, I had a high tome in my hand. I don't remember if I just flipped one naturally or if I had to cheat it in, but I Twist Reality with Serena Bowmaned it early on. A Hole in the World triggered it to pull it out of its not that it had a bubble, but pull it out of the area, and then just murked it with Twist Reality. And I knew I was going to try and twist a lot of reality here, but I think that the board was sort of affected a lot of my decision making as well, especially in the decision of whether I really do pull the trigger and go Dreamer. It was a very neat lizard. It was a Lizard Man board basically for like Fantasy or Sigmar.
Nice.
But because there were so many big obstacles, I was like, we're taking a lot of incorporeal here. We have to. And so my plan was to run the Insidious Madnesses, eat them down the board, and just sort of have the chompy Serena, Dreamer if I need her, Widow Weaver. And I sold out hard with Widow Weaver just to sort of run in. I summoned a red cap for the first time ever in a tournament. That was wild. Because I just got the red cap models and I built and painted them. I was going to summon a Stitched, but then Jesse peer pressured me into doing a red cap.
I literally thought to myself, if he summons a Stitched, it's going to be bad, and red caps are dope.
Red caps are dope. Can confirm. And I had just painted them. Literally, I think the box came out that Monday, and this tournament was this Saturday. So it's like,
was the right call with all those low powers.
It was, but it didn't matter. He died. It didn't matter what I was going to summon. He was in the death zone. It was going to die immediately. And I was pretty confident that was the case anyway. So I don't think it even got to activate, to be fair.
It didn't.
But, but I mean, it was a calculated decision. The Widow Weaver summoning something up in his face, he really needed to sort of deal with that. And I think that it sort of made it so that Chompy didn't die, or so that the Widow Weaver didn't die, except that the Widow Weaver did die. So that wasn't great. I think was it turn 1 or was it early turn 2?
It was turn 1.
Yeah, it was end of turn 1. So I killed his Iron Golem, but I had to trade my Widow Weaver for it. So
Seems like a good trade
I
for
don't-
you, honestly.
I don't know. I mean, the Widow Weaver would have had a lot of versatility later on in that game.
Yeah, the Widow Weaver would have been pretty clutch. I mean,
Yeah.
I ended up killing the Widow Weaver and the summoned model before the summoned model activated.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
but
especially on that board against Mei
Yeah.
Feng too. Yeah, you need that Widow
yeah,
Weaver.
I think it would have been a very different game had Widow Weaver survived. I knew I was being really aggressive with her, but I haven't seen a lot of Mei Feng 2, and I just sort of wanted to test the waters, and oh boy, did I test them.
Yeah.
But they so my game plan was really just sort of have Jesse sort of run up the center, have my incorporeal boys sort of eke out and go around and hit his backfield, which I did. And I think that my plan probably would have worked. I think we ended up ending with 4-3. We did take a lot of time to get set up and running. We took sort of the first round took a long while, and it was pretty obvious. I think we both looked up at the clock and were like, oh no. At the end of the first round, and I was pretty sure we weren't going to get very far into the game. I think that the big thing that I made a mistake on is that I haven't really seen Survivors a lot before, and I decided that I was going to go Merc one. And when I threw my Insidious Madness into it, because the Survivors are just like, for some reason, willpower 6.
One does not simply mark a survivor.
Yeah. Oh, I know that now. But I sort of wasted an activation on his survivor. And I think at that point I didn't yet know that it was Hidden Martyrs, because I think if I remember you revealed Hidden Martyrs at the end of the game, right?
It wasn't the end of the game. It was turn 3, and we got into turn 4. So basically, you had one turn to react to the Hidden Martyrs after Sparks died.
Sure. Yeah, and it was I saw Sparks. I saw Sparks on the field, much like I always do when I see Sparks, whether we're seeing Sparks in Mei Feng or whether we're seeing Sparks in Mautucket. And I knew immediately I was going to kill that model as soon as possible. And that was what the Widow Weaver sold out to do. I just, or is that actually, no, is that what the Widow Weaver sold out to do?
No.
Hold on. Who sold out to kill Sparks? It was, is it Serena? Right. Yeah. And so on the turn that you ran up the board with Sparks, I Serena'd him. That sounds right. And then I went to and then you killed my my doll, which was my Hidden Martyr, and
I ended up killing Serena as well because I threw the Obsidian statue into her, and then I severed and moderated her. So I triggered her demise, and then I also killed her. In the same activation.
Yep. And that's a thing. That's a price that I had to pay.
Yeah, thinking about the sacrificing the Widow Weaver thing, I think that when you're up against Mei Feng 2, one of the way that you have to shut her down is to make sure that she isn't dropping a scrap marker like turn 1-2 in a place where everyone can rail walk and get into a really advantageous position. So she's going to activate and she's going to lay track and drop a scrap marker at range, and you have to immediately have a counter move to get rid of that scrap marker. If you don't, then all of a sudden you've got a metal golem that is going to jump down your throat and an obsidian statue and whatever else.
And I knew that there were definitely some key pieces in her crew that I needed to neutralize as soon as possible, and I think I made mostly the right choices in that respect. But I think I probably could have. I think I may have underestimated my punchy power, and I might have oversold a couple times. And I think that really is what led me to just being sort of overextended a little bit and then crunching. But I killed Sparks and I killed that Iron Golem. So
sure did.
We got there. We got there in the end.
Yeah, I mean, I think my takeaways were, because this is the master that I was the most excited to play, and this is kind of feeding into our next segment. So I guess maybe I'll hold off on that. But let's just move on.
Sure. So end results of the event: we had Adam in first, Jesse in second, Doug in third, and Brandon, where were you?
I don't know. We didn't. He didn't run it on a software thing, so I have no idea. I went 102, 1-2, 1-2.
Yeah. You should have ended up probably fourth or fifth.
Well, I know there was another tie. There was another tie too. So.
We had a tie in the first round. I think there was also a tie in the last round.
Yeah. So you probably ended up fourth then.
Yeah. Who knows?
All right.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. What's the last segment, Jesse?
What's a call sheet?
Post tournament thoughts. So talking about do I leave this in? Yeah, fuck it. I'm gonna leave this in.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Bold.
So talking about single master and whether it's a good thing.
Yes,
and
yes,
I
yes.
guess-
Overwhelmingly, yes.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, dude,
So-
screw double masters. And that's like, I want to try Cadmus 2 with other masters. It's just
No.
like-
We saw what happens with Cadmus 2 and other masters already. We saw it at TempleCon. We don't need more of that.
Are you sure though?
So
What about Mayhoff? What about Mayfang 2, Hoff 2 out of Arcanist? Doesn't that
Sure.
sound fun?
There's
and
all
balanced?
kinds. I mean, or Sandeep and literally anyone. I mean, yeah, there's it's
Zoraida and anyone.
Or any summoner second
Pandora
master.
and anyone.
Yeah.
Doesn't that sound fun?
yeah, I
Doesn't
think
that sound
that
fun?
Jackdaw Karai. Fuck that.
there's
Yeah.
enough really toxic combos of
Yep.
masters out there that are just super unfun to play against. And like, if you okay, so from a competitive standpoint, obviously, like if you're playing a competitive game of Malifaux in a big tournament, like the expectation to be on the top table is that you have a good understanding of your opponent's master, potentially your opponent's second master, and how to tech against them. I feel like from a competitive standpoint, that's a significant barrier for newer players. Like you can't just YOLO a master and like for instance, playing Kiernan, if he's pretty much soloing Yonlo 2. Obviously, Yonlo 2 is a really strong master, but if he ends up playing into a really nasty double master combo and doesn't know how to tech against him, like
Yeah, good luck.
doesn't really matter how good he is at the master he's chosen, he might get rolled.
Yeah.
I feel like the double master detracts a lot from the game, and it doesn't add anything to it.
Yeah,
So
there's-
I
there's-
do have one counterpoint to this, and this is
Mhm.
coming from a person who really has pushed for this game to try to grow new players since I've been playing, which now has been about a year. And I'm a very I'm a tournament player, and that's why I love Malifaux. I think it's the best tournament game I've ever played in my 20 years of tabletop gaming. But I will say that I think of double master and single master as kind of two different formats. And when I listen to someone like Bad Haku or like Haku talk about it and his experience in the Vassal tournament series, in an accepted meta, you can have bans where you ban keywords, and he thinks about it like the most gratuitous thing I auto ban, and it's like another level of depth and mastery that experienced players can throw into one another. But I think where the bottom falls out very, very quickly is when you have a player like Adam or Jesse, like you guys have been playing this game, or Jake, you guys have been playing this game so long, and there is a whole new generation of Malifaux players wanting to play third ed, and they would have no idea what these combos are because it is kind of esoteric to a degree to get this type of understanding, because there isn't a ton of literature on an accepted meta of Malifaux, and the information can be hard to siphon through unless you have firsthand experience or a play group that really understands that. That's
Again-
like kind of my opinion.
Again, though, I think you just made an argument against double master there
I
because it's
am
already...
arguing against double masters.
Yeah, because, no, I mean, you were talking about the bans and stuff like that. Even bans, even then, it's like it's hard enough for a new player. Like the whole selling point of this keyword mechanic when it came to third was it's going to be easier to say, hey, this is what I'm playing. This is kind of what it does because this is what the keyword does. When you start bringing second masters into it, it's like, hey, this is what I'm playing. This is what it does because they all share like the same abilities on this keyword, but also I'm going to throw in this bitch, And then like all of a sudden it's like, well, I couldn't even in a million years think of that combo. Whereas the whole purpose of the keyword system was to make it simpler for people to understand what these things did, and I understand it's like, well, you got to shore up some weaknesses with these other masters. It's like, no, you don't. That's not the point. The point is that there's supposed to be weaknesses with these masters and with these keywords. Otherwise, they'd just all be bonkers and they'd all be great. And you need to be able to like mix and match and take certain ones for certain pools. I hate double master. I hate it. And I think it's bad for the game. I think single master is the way to go because I think I know they had Double Master in mind when they made it, and I think they're just kind of being stubborn on getting rid of it at this point, kind of like Games Workshop is stubborn with getting rid of the Double Turn in Age of Sigmar, right? It's like, it's bad for the game. Nobody thinks it isn't. Like, get rid of it. And they're like, we're going to make it work. It doesn't work. It just doesn't work.
The other thing that's really like that, I think the reason why Brandon and I have talked about this for our tournaments is it discourages new players and creates negative play experiences for new players specifically. And that's what I want. That's what a lot of my tournaments are, as a TO or somebody trying to help out and grow a scene, as a person who's personally built 14 Malifaux boards, like literally personally built 14 Malifaux boards. Like me and Brandon
And one
Sam,
out of cake.
and one out of cake.
Ooh.
Brandon and Sam
Sexy
have built
cake.
almost 20 Malifaux boards, and one of them is fully edible. It's made of cake.
And currently in my car.
Yeah, like it's no joke. Like we have really fully bought into this game, and we truly love it. It's awesome. We get why this game is cool, but I'm saying, as a person who is new to the game and has spent a lot of give a fucks getting good at this game and understanding it, I don't think that that's good for new players, because it creates a frustrating barrier that is kind of counter to the lore and the keyword kind of mechanic and all the things that it feels like Third Ed is pushing for a new player to try to help understand the game of Malifaux. You know?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the bands format is a band-aid to the idea of double masters. I love the idea, and I TO'd the event at Adepticon this year, and we did the bands format, so I got to see that in a large-scale competitive event. And the thing that it reinforced in me more than anything else is that the very competitive, very tournament grindy, like the Bad Faux Haku guys, Landon Longton, the other, like the Texas Meta dudes who play
Who
with
we
Doug,
love.
which are all great. They're all tournament grinders. They all know the ins and outs of every keyword in the entire game, and they did great. But I can tell you what, every other person who wasn't like a hardcore competitive tournament grinder, who plays Malifaux at their local scene occasionally and was just pumped to get out to a big tournament, they either didn't use the bands format or had no idea what to pick when their opponent said, I'm playing Arcanists, which is wild that they weren't like immediately windmill slam, you can't play Hoffman. It's like that the bands format's cool, but double masters is a problem, and I just think that it's they're so unbalanced in terms of what two master combos are massively overpowered compared to other ones, that it's just not. It's too much, and it already sort of like Malifaux it succeeds in the wargaming space because it is very inexpensive to get into. You need like 2 boxes and you can play a game. After those 2 boxes and you want to go to a tournament, you might need that 2 or 3 times. But then when we get into double masters, now we're talking extra boxes, and it sort of detracts from the whole experience of like sort of the niche of it being a skirmish game, because now we're like doubling and tripling the model count that we need. Just as an aside, but
just from a fluff standpoint, it fucking pulls me out of it. I mean, obviously that's not a competitive argument, but like, it just doesn't. I don't know.
Well, even with the bands,
it just doesn't
right?
feel right.
Like we're talking about the bands, and we're talking about Langton and Longton, and the great players, and I can't fault them for taking advantage of something that is readily available to them to play the best, right? Because that's that's what competitive players are going to do, right? Like I said, I've been rocking the fuck out of Double Master for like the past 6 months now, because I want to make it a problem, because I know it is a problem, right?
Congratulations, sir.
Yeah,
we have achieved problem status.
Problem status. So the I guess my point being is that even with bans, right? Like, let's say you're playing against me. It's like, okay, you're playing Zoraida. Okay, well, I'm gonna ban Woes. It's like, that's cool. I'm just gonna play, Dreamer now.
Well,
and like, it's wild. Like, there are so many things that so many factions can do, and it's another level of balancing that the designers really like don't take into account or can't take into account, because the game is too diverse, and it just.
An Obey Master is always and forever going to be a fantastic second or first master, and then you can just hire another master. You know what I mean? Like, if one of your 2 masters is an Obey Master, you're already solid.
Yeah, and I think the other thing with the bands format is that it doesn't. It actually rewards the top level competitive players much more than it rewards the lower level.
Correct. Who are already going to be
the more introductory level players. And Brandon kind of touched on that before, but like, if you're in a competitive meta and you're playing against this one person and you say, okay, well, they have the entire faction available to them just because I know what's in their bag for whatever reason. I'm going to ban this one master, and then, the game plays out the way it's going to play. But, like, you don't necessarily know what your opponent brought to the table. Or if you're a new player, you have no idea what you should be banning. You could say, well, I know 3 keywords, so I'm going to ban family in guild, even though somebody would never hire a family model out of keyword.
And the opposite is also true, Jesse. Like, if you're a new player, you might not have a lot of stuff, and if they're like, "Oh, you can't play kin," then you're like, "Cool, I guess we're not playing."
Right. I don't have enough models to make a
Well,
valid
to be clear, the way that the bans format works is after your master declaration.
Yeah,
so you can't ever stop somebody from playing a crew, but what you stop them from doing is taking a second master or taking any out of keyword models.
Yeah, no, I follow. I understand.
But
that.
also, it is going to affect the better player. The better player is going to have an advantage there because it's just going to be like, okay, well, I know what combos are broken and you don't. So I'm going to ban the shit that's going to make your stuff broken, and you don't know. Like if somebody that doesn't know Neverborn is playing me, they're like, I guess I'll ban Mimic. And I'm like, okay,
But
that's
gentlemen,
cool, like,
gentlemen. Then I think what we're all saying is kind of a 2-track, right? Like, there is a hyper competitive version of Malifaux. If you want to opt into that, this is what it is.
Yeah, but the game thrives in competitive. I think this game, for all intents and purposes, I know there's like people that can play it beer and pretzels. This is not that game. This is a. If you want to play it that way, fine. But this game thrives as a competitive game. It's a tight rule set. It's one of the more balanced games that are out there. It's for the most part, it lives and breathes as a competitive game, very much like War Machine did. Right, War Machine, they did a lot of things wrong. The biggest problem with War Machine is their balance got so wonky and there was so much bloat that game imploded on itself. But they did some things that were very much right. They recognized that they were a competitive game, so we're going to make things based on competition, and they made a lot of their rulings based on that. Like one thing I love that
I agree. It's part of why I love this game.
Yeah, one thing I love they did with War Machine, one thing they did right for me at least, was their pairing system. So like you wouldn't bring like I'm playing Neverborn, but I'm not going to bring the whole faction. You're going to bring 2 or 3 masters depending on what level of the tournament it is, and you have to play them each at least once. You know, but that way it lets you take masters that fill holes for other masters, and like you have to like strategically pick when you're going to play those masters, but you don't have to worry about like, oh, I'm going to take this one might take this one. You can look at it and say, okay, I know he's going to take one of these 2 guys or one of these 3 guys, and you can kind of build around it.
Yeah, I would love to have something like that, and I guess there sort of is in terms of variants for Malifaux tournaments, but I think that War Machine just didn't have as much focus on the exact scenario and scheme because everybody, for primary and secondary objectives, because everybody sort of knew, and then also War Machine just had the built-in auto win of if you kill your opponent's caster, and there were some crews that were just made to build that. But I think I love the idea of the 2-list system and then the 3-list system that War Machine did, but I don't know if I would love to do something like that with Malifaux. Yeah. I think it'd be really, really cool. Like I don't know if that's going down a rabbit hole that we don't want to fuck with, but
I wouldn't say you do a fixed list, but you could definitely do like masters.
Oh no, not fixed list, but like, at the start of the tournament you register with like, it's a 3, maybe like it's a 5-round event, you register with a maximum of 4 masters and you have to play them each once or something like that. That would be a cool format, but I don't know.
I was actually thinking based kind of on what Doug was saying about how he makes his Maxine lists, like you could almost do something where it is a semi-fixed list with a sideboard.
Yeah, where you register a 35 soulstone crew as the premise, and then you have 15 soulstones to play with, or something like that.
Yeah. But it feels like that's how a lot of people make their, like when I was learning this game, I asked a lot of different members of the community, like, how do you make crews? Like, what's the core part of your crew? How do you bring in tech? And they almost described it like that to me. I feel like a lot of people do that, right?
That's what I do.
Yeah, that's what I do too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of people do it like that. A lot of people have their kind of base crew that has their synergies that they work around, and then like they flex in things based on what the scheme pool might be. I think that's probably the best way to do it because you have obvious synergies and you know what those models do. I think in most war games, it's if you know your stuff, you're already doing better than a lot of people. You know, it's familiarity. Um, but yeah, I think ultimately, long and short, whatever variant you want to pick, I think Double Master is bad, and the single.
I think we're all agreed on that.
Yeah, this single format was actually a lot of fun because I was forced to take options that I haven't been since I've been doing the double, and it really opens up a lot of things.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, Jesse, was there something else? I can't open the Google Doc.
So titles working as intended, are they? And then faction/master focuses for each of us moving forward.
Titles are working. Moving on.
Great.
Okay.
Titles confirmed. Good. Moving on.
Yeah, I'll say though, I didn't play all titles. I played Zoraida 1 because she's still.
That's how you know it's working.
Well, is it working though? I mean, okay, look. So yeah, there definitely are masters where I would play both. I would play both Dreamers. I would play both Pandoras. However, I'm never going to play Euripides 1, and Euripides 2 is in fact a de facto replacement of Euripides 1. So is it working across the board unilaterally? No. But is it adding versatility? Yeah, absolutely.
It's not perfect. Of course, it's not perfect. Yeah. I mean, it's a huge game, and they doubled the masters. But I mean, did it make the game better?
Oh, for sure, definitely. Yeah. I wonder what the actual count of masters that are viable in both cases, and how many of them are like Euripides or Perdita 1.
That sounds like another episode.
Oh, sounds like a good episode.
Yeah, I mean, just speaking about some of the masters that we talked about.
Sounds like a documentary.
Tournament, I feel like kind of the shining example of a well-designed second master, and we already talked about this, but is Yanlo 2. I mean, Yanlo 1 is very strong. Yanlo 2 is very strong. They both do different things. You're probably never wrong for picking either one of them. And
they take different models.
Yeah. Right, that's different important. Models, which is a big deal.
That I really like that in some models where you take one crew takes one and the other crew takes a completely different subset, which is how Dreamer is.
Yeah, and your opponent has to text slightly differently into each version of it. So if your opponent gets the wrong read and over texts in one way or another, like in my game, then it can come back to kind of bite them. So that's kind of the way that I feel like they should go. In terms of masters that are maybe unbalanced from one version to another, then yeah, I think that's definitely something that's worth discussing in another episode. I feel like it's probably the vast minority of masters that are in parity with each other right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. So, what are we doing? What's our future master?
Adam, why don't you tell us what your Adam?
Yes.
You just won the Super Bowl. What are you gonna do next?
Go to Disney World, Joe.
Is there a Malifaux Disney World? Is that just weird headquarters?
I have no idea.
I don't think so because it's in Georgia.
Oh.
So coming up for me, I'm going to try and start playing less Pandy and Zoraida. I started playing Euripides because I think he's awesome. I do have Dreamer. I have both versions of Dreamer. Which I'm looking at. I had a janky. I put Wicked Dolls in my Dreamer crew too, but I don't think it's for the same reason you did.
Yeah.
I put them in so I can consume them with Teddy and Lady Hume and get get 3 stone stitched instead of 6 stone stitched.
Yeah, sure. No, I mean that works out. That works out with Widow Weaver. That's a thing that you can do.
So I think I'm going to go that route. And I really want to get my Nekoma on the table. I'm just having a real hard time finding those underwater variant models for Haywardin and for Lilitu and stuff like that. I might have to just bite the bullet and let have my OCD loose for once and just get the regular models. But yeah, and I got some Marcus stuff too. I think Marcus actually does have legs in Neverborn, and I think it's kind of overlooked. So
Meowkiss.
It's Meowkiss.
I think Marcus 1 even still has play. I think he's just largely. I think he's largely overlooked, but.
Yeah. I thought for a moment, Adam, that you were going to call him Barkus, and we were going to have to come to blows.
No.
Thank you guys so much, because when I heard them calling him Barkus, I was like, he's a fucking cat.
No,
it's a cat.
I have an active Google Doc of all of the different masters' names, and my favorite that is my sole intellectual property is Ivan 2 is actually Zvivan. which is the German word for two. It's Zwei.
He has saber-toothed tusks.
Yeah.
He's
And
it's
feline
Meowkus.
like
It's
yeah.
He is
Meowkus.
definitely a cat.
So-
Yes, for sure.
But that's what I'm looking at. So
Yeah. How about you, Brandon? What do you got?
I think I don't know if it was Adam inspired or to be fair, we were sort of looking at it, and I think I was seeing Adam paint some of his crew, but I just finished painting all of my Euripides crew, so I'll probably be working on Euripidos quite a bit. That's Euripides 2 for those in the crowd, and I think I'm the only crew that I don't have fully painted now for Neverborn is Lucius, so I just have to paint some Lucius models, and I have a fully painted Neverborn faction.
Nice.
So I think I'm probably just going to do that. I don't know if I'm going to play a lot of Lucius, but maybe I'll slam back into some of the classics, playing some Titania. I think I really miss that. I haven't done that enough in a while, but and I think I might sink my teeth into Zoraida. So a little bit of Zoraida. Oh, and then also I sort of bought the Rezzers faction, so we might see some Von Stuck and Reva soon.
Dude, I really want to see you play Rezzers, man. I think you'd have an excellent time. They're so schemy and nonsensy and have so much tech. It would be such a reasonable transition from Neverborn into Rezzer. You can still do nonsense. You love doing nonsense.
I play exclusively nonsense. I started this game on
know.
Titania, and I will die on that hill.
yeah,
You love
Rezzers
nonsense.
are-
That's your thing.
you're gonna love
Rezzers
Karai.
are my least favorite faction to play into.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Yeah. Also, people
Nice.
keep saying things like that, and I'm like, how can I miss?
Nah, they're just bullies. Don't let people like that get to you, man.
Also, Archie has leap. What the fuck? When did that happen?
He's always
Archie has some
it's-
deficiencies. Archie has some
yeah.
deficiencies.
He's okay.
I had
He's
no
okay.
idea, bro. He has
Archie
he has an ice cream cone, and I have the pinkest pink. So
Archie is fine. Archie is fine.
Yes.
I'm gonna play Archie when I play Molly 1 as God intended.
Yeah, I like Molly.
How
Oh,
One.
I'm sorry. I meant Molly 2. I'm gonna play a crap ton of Molly 2. Dude, are you kidding? Molly 2 is gonna lead a circus, and that circus.
That's a good one for our next episode when we talk about master variants that aren't good,
Yeah,
unfortunately.
bad.
Okay. How about you, Doug? What do you got going?
So this tournament was like, I studied for the EVS crew basically to want to be able to run it and see how I liked it. And I got a lot of reps in, so I don't think I'm going to spend a ton of time on Max 2 for a little bit. A master that I really like that Sam has been testing for a while, and basically I piggyback off of Sam's testing, kind of like when there's a smarter kid in class, so you like kind of try to get up over and see what he's writing on his test, and then you kind of do a shittier version, and that kid gets an A, but you get like a B and it's fine. That's what's happening in ES right now on the Danger Planet side. So Sam is testing out Jezda 2. So I am also now going to do a whole bunch of testing with Jezda 2. I love her ability to kind of insta-score deathbeds and have lots of different marker creation. And oh boy, that sweet irreducible min 4 track from like randomly 12 inches away seems like a really annoying thing that I can do to some people. So I'm going to play around with that. And then maybe play Yanlo 2 at a tournament and see if that's good, basically.
Cool. Awesome. What about you, Jake?
Well, I've been playing a lot of Arcanist recently, and I think the plan is to try to get this Colette crew painted and do some Colette title version, because she is a lot of fun. But I also you guys need to talk me off the ledge, because I kind of want to start playing Guild now after this Vassal tournament that we have been doing. I just really want to try Guild, especially Lucius too.
Do it.
Yeah.
Do it!
If you need Lucius 2 models, I will let you borrow all of mine as soon as they are fully painted. Not joking.
If you need a Lady J2 crew, I'll bring it to a tournament for you to play.
I really like crews with crazy synergy and movement shenanigans, and Lucius 2 kind of fills that role pretty well. So that's why I'm really liking him, and just a lot of the versatiles, and there's just a lot of cool stuff in Guild. And I feel like in this area, our sort of meta, like New England meta, there's not a lot of Guild players, so we need to represent.
And Predator 2 is pretty fucking great. So
She is ridiculous.
You could literally. It's funny because I got her in the draft league, and I played her the one game, and I thought to myself, I could literally just buy Perdita 2 and a couple of models and just run them.
Yeah.
Mhm.
She's so
And
fun so
Dashel.
good.
Dashel 1
New
is
Dashel.
baller.
Yeah, so it's Colette.
Dashel.
Yeah, well, so it's Colette and maybe some Lucius too.
Cool. Yeah, and then for me, I've got obviously all of Bayou, and I've got essentially all of Thunders, and then I've got a little bit of Explorers. So what I've been trying to do is pare down each of the 3 factions to 3 masters that I want to focus on, because I feel like focusing on an entire faction can be a little overwhelming. In Bayou, I've played the crap out of Ma Tucket, Ophelia, and Zip, to the point that I feel like I have them all, like, I know them like the back of my hand. So for any future Bayou games, at least for the rest of the year, I'm probably not going to play any of those 3 masters, and I'm going to move on to some other masters in the faction. I think I've pretty much narrowed it down to Brewmaster, Ulix, and Zoraida.
Brewmaster, shocking.
Like, yeah, I know, right? It's almost like he's good. In terms of the Explorers, it's pretty much going to be Ivan, because I still think he's very legit and overlooked. I feel like people think he got nerfed more than he actually did. But he's still absolutely solid. I really like Anya a lot. And then for the 3rd slot, I'm probably looking at either Cooper or McCabe. I really feel like McCabe, even though people kind of rag on him for not having great out of keyword minion hires and Explorers, can still do some pretty legit stuff. So I like him a lot. And then for Thunders, it's pretty much gonna be May 2, because I played her once and she's some of the most fun that I've ever had playing Malifaux. That was a phenomenally fun game, and like, I misused her terribly, and she's unlocking her is going to be a lot of fun. And then for other Thunders, I love Misaki. Me and Adam have talked about her a lot, and I think she's just stunningly good. And then for that 3rd slot, I haven't really nailed it down yet, but it's either going to be Shenlong or I'll go McCabe and Thunders as well, and just have one little kind of cross-faction thing going.
You're not going to do Lynch.
So there you go. I do have Lynch.
You're not going to do Lynch too? Come on.
I'm trying to stick to 3. I'll probably end up. Lynch 2's in the running. Let me put it there. He might knock McCabe out of the slot.
Wait, did you just officially spoil Lynch 3?
Yes.
Oh my god. It's happening. You heard it here first, folks.
Happening. And at this point, we are 2 hours and 20 minutes in. So before we go, Brandon and Doug, was there anything that you'd like to plug?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, Brandon,
This is the point where you actually plug it.
Oh, I had no idea. Well, definitely keep your eyes out for a Danger Planet video that'll be coming to you coming to a theater near you at some point in the next some amount of time. We're taking our time on this one. We really want to make it awesome, but we built a Malifaux table out of cake.
Yep.
And yeah, no. I mean, I to be honest, I think that the cake is going to do enough talking, and I think that'll be wild. Also, if you're in the New England area in the middle of June, on June 18th at Battleground Games and Hobbies in Saugus, we'll be running our next Malifaux event. It's going to be a 3-round tournament, and we would love to have you come out.
Single master.
I might still have some cake left by then, and it will be a single master event. And by single master, to be clear, I mean there will be no double masters allowed. You don't have to declare a single. It is a singles format event.
Yes, there you go. Yeah. So at this point, we're really looking. I know I'm certainly really looking forward to going to that event. We're looking at doing a little bit more cross promotion stuff with the Danger Planet guys. So
Yeah.
As we said before, we're going to be doing some more faction focused videos. Doug, if you could check on the day for this weekend for me and get back to me.
It is Sunday confirmed.
It is Sunday confirmed. Okay, I will not be at your house tomorrow at 12 o'clock.
Do you want to just meet at Doug's house tomorrow? We could.
Please do not.
We could just hang out there.
No, please do not.
I heard he has 16 tables, so.
No. To be fair, most of those are at Battleground right now, and except for the cake one, that's in my car.
Nice. So, with that said, thanks everybody for joining us. Keep your conversations boring and stay weird, folks.